Our society and our world are full of these invented and built up and contrived facades. And sometimes some people come along with a hammer and smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
Welcome to the future. Shit where you please. The Wi-Fi's killer, but there's no more bees. So there's hardly any flowers, there are very few trees, and you'll pay $1,000 for some honey for your tea. But we got these awesome collars, mine's an Apple Model 3. It allows for better movement than the Tesla X Elite. It lets you customize the ads that it implants in every dream. And for premium subscribers, doesn't shock you in your sleep. But it doesn't stop there. It can analyze your speech, and if it hears disinformation, then it notifies police. It's a swift re-education, but it knocks you off your feet like your booster every 7th week. I faced the future boldly with 2 eager open eyes, and I picked a couple nuggets up that blew my fucking mind. Like you can taxidermy someone while they're technically alive, and they'll shine when it's election time. See, the Democratic voter base will pay them zero. Never mind if voting for the scarecrow is a vote along their party lines. They could stare into its marble eyes and claim there's something dignified. Unlike real politicians, this one doesn't need an oxygen or kit supply. But its function is the same as those who came before. The goals are never misaligned. It still spends all its working time performing pre-recorded fleecing sessions where it sugarcoats your slow and hungry genocide, while pouring billions into Nazi coffers, all the while selling you the story that we're moments till the MiGs arrive. So fuck it, ask Zelensky if he'll help replace our leaded pipes. Watch a fleet of Penske's show, stacks of bills in every size. Guess it only took a black sun and a couple hiles. Honorary goose step and some Nazi boots a quarter mile, all while Biden sneers his sordid smile. I don't know what was in this morning's vial, but it makes him stare 1,000 yards through all the prompters and the cards like he can smell the nearest child. His eyes are wide and wild, wider than the grave in which another 1,000 families were tossed in as I typed until they rose up to the sky unceremoniously piled. Which sort of flies right in the face of all this network ticker tape where the American economy has superhuman vitals.
And sometimes some people come along with a hammer.
See, I like to think my trial's gonna play like a recital. I'll denounce the world around me and accuse the most entitled, who weaponize their titles, whose pull is something tidal, who'd starve us all to death to best delight their blighted idol. So they might destroy the record, and I will never get to vinyl. So my word is not immortal, but it's final.
It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
Forced awake, I know they wrapped you in the warmest chains, and I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say. I can't imagine how you feel today, now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. Ooh, I bet you wondered why they made you wait.
Pity not the vultures, they've enough to eat. Pity not the structures laying at your feet. Cannot see the sky, but there's this rainbow in the creek that spells pity free speech when we can't afford to speak. That's Agenda 2030 on some early release. It's just our policy of never-ending chemical leaks. That's the cholera awash in your embedded beliefs. It's the billionaires who tell you what you'd better believe. And sugar, if you don't agree, then that's what we call extreme. Now, if that isn't fascism, I'm going back to sleep. 'Cause words have lost their meaning, and I'm trapped inside a dream where we turn the gears while living in the spaces in between.
I know you hated being forced awake. I know they wrapped you in the warmest chains. And I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say.
Poor thing.
I can't imagine how you feel today, now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. I bet you wondered why they made you wait.
My dial doesn't go to delicate. I'm writing for when Biden drops and Madam Zero delegates come stumbling up the podium, square peg in her element, popping Oxycontin like they're velements, laughing as she pawns off all our pensions for Ukrainian development. Depleted rounds and cluster bombs, the shit that stunts development, all buried under excrement, accepted as American intelligence. A contradiction in its eloquence. Terms of surrender.
There's a difference between peace and liberation, is there not? You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct? Have peace and be enslaved.
Yes.
So peace isn't the answer.
No.
Liberation is the answer. Liberation.
News.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
We did it. Another Wednesday. This time they're not DDoSing the entire internet, so I think it working this week. Yay! Yay! We're here. We did it. And me, Reef, with my co-host as always, Collin Radix-Carter, aka Care Bear. Care Bear, how you doing? You doing all right?
I'm hungry.
I'm hungry. Well, we gotta get some food.
That might feed into the fury for tonight. We'll see though.
Oh, he hangy. Oh no, he needs a Snickers. You know, you're not you when you're hungry.
I actually do.
You know?
Actually sounds really good right now.
Well, we brought some stories. We did the darn thing again.
So I just told Reef just before we went on, I'm just so glad we're not talking about the main stories that I think are trending this week. Not to say they're not important, but again, it's just more like distraction. Most of it, at least. Some of it is important, but uh-oh.
No, that's me. I messed it up.
Oh,
You're
no,
weird.
I think my internet's being weird again. I might have to check it. Like, actually have Verizon. Shout out to Verizon in DC
Right.
to probably check it just to see the signal, because this has been happening now for a while, more consistently now.
Right.
But as I was saying, it makes me glad. I'm just glad we're not covering the main stories. Some of
Yeah.
them are important, but most of them are just distraction, culture war. And I think, living in DC, the government's still shut down. I think personally they're going for a record.
Yeah.
I think the record right now is 35 days. Now it's been a little over 3 weeks. And next week is Halloween, and we're heading into the holiday season, and things are going to become a lot more dire for a lot more people. So I think given that, I think my segments are apt to kind of talk about those things in light of my first segment, which will be on the Congressional Black Caucus, also known as the Congressional Black Crows, as I call them.
Right.
And how AIPAC has basically forced them into silence, not forced, but coerced them into silence, given what's happening in Palestine. So we're going to read a Nation article. We are kind of meh about the Nation sometimes. I think this article
They're
is
dog shit
mostly
most
good.
of the time.
Well, I think this article is mostly good, bar certain things
Couple of things that we'll call out.
Offer did not mention, but
Right.
we are.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into that first. And then later on tonight, my big story tonight, this guy, Benito, also known as Bad Bunny. So he's been getting a lot of attention in the news, given that he is headlining the Super Bowl in February, and MAGA is up in arms about it. But I'm seeing a lot of stuff online, and granted, I hang out, most of my close friends, at least in DC, are Latino, so yes, I know who Bad Bunny is. But he's kind of been mentioned, I think, definitely in the music industry, as far as he is the voice of the resistance of Puerto Rico. So we're going to look into that a little bit more and just kind of see, is that really true? So I have some critiques on that, and I know Reef does too. You know who Bad Bunny is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Puerto Ricano, Boricuan.
So
he be doing shit with Cardi B and whatnot. I do believe.
I'm not so sure about that, but
I think so. Could be wrong. Could be thinking of somebody else.
Yeah, but we'll get into him and talk more about that a little later. And then what did you bring?
Well, I brought a little UK story. Speaking of the UK people in the chat, we're going to talk about what's been happening to the Palestine Action people that supported that in the protests, I don't know, over the last couple of months, right? Not good things. So I'll give the bad news on that one. And I also brought a story. You've been talking about Venezuela a lot recently, seeing as how U.S. is trying to, coup them. But we're going to talk about how HUGO did the opposite to American citizens and decided to help. We're gonna go back in time and look at some history real quick. Be good. We've been doing well on that. But that's what I brought. So
cool.
Yeah.
And I didn't put it here, but I brought a quick extra story of how you're a deadbeat regarding your credit cards. Collin, what do you mean by that? We'll get to it at the end of the show. So stick around for that and find out how you're a deadbeat. But anyway, YouTube hates us. They demonetized us. We're very happy to say number one, and this is a shout out to you guys. We have to say it every week because honestly, we cannot do the show without you all. You've helped keep us, basically helped us kind of get this far, even though not to say, I would say on average, definitely low on subs, but I think definitely spirit wise, you guys have definitely been very faithful to us, and we highly appreciate that. And we're happy to say that we are in the black in terms of the funding that we need to raise for the year. Well, the year is almost over. To make sure that we're able to pay for the programs that we use in order to produce the show and then other shows on the network. And Angel raised his money for his computer, yes?
I think so.
Yes?
Pretty sure.
Yes. So if Angel's in the chat, let us know. But I think also thank you guys also, for helping out Angel so he's able to get a new computer, or at least very close to it. That being said, we are thinking about next year, and possibly ways that we can help, more people, whether it is someone within the network or maybe helping others within the community financially. And I'll get more into this probably within my 2 segments that I'm going to cover. We understand that times are going to be hard for some of you all, or at least within your families, it might be very hard, especially given the government shutdown right now.
Yeah.
So, as I always say, and I will say this especially so now, please take care of yourselves, take care of your neighbors, take care of your friends. Many of your neighbors and your friends might be struggling, and they're too prideful to maybe say something because they don't want to feel pity. But I'm telling you, those of you who have means, even if it's just a little bit, and if you know somebody who it needs help, check in with them. Ask if you need any help. Because as I said, we're getting to the point of the year where, money's going to be tight for folks. Food is going to be tight for folks. So really do your best to check in on the people around you to make sure that they're being taken care of. That being said, if you do have some money that you would like to support INN and the show, you can scan the QR code you see on your screen, or you can go to the Ko-fi link that you see at the bottom of your screen. If you're in the YouTube chat and you're live, you can type in !donate, all one word, to bring up the Ko-fi link in the chat, and you can click on it directly and give right there. Anything as small as $1 will be very helpful to us. And if you don't want to give through Ko-fi, Cash App, PayPal, and Substack, those links are in the description, as well as what Reef is showing you on the screen. And anyone who gives at any point will be featured on our Wall of Fame. Those who are highlighted are like our mega donors, so to speak. And your name will be featured in the closing credits of the show. That's just a little thank you, at least for right now, for our super fans, our fam. Well, all of you are our fam, and we love you and appreciate you guys for that. But as I said, I'd rather you guys focus on whatever money you do have to check in on your neighbors, especially right now, given the government shutdown. And I think the longer it goes on, as I told Reef, I think we're going for a record here.
Right.
It's going to get a lot more dire for a lot more people. So please check in on your friends and your family to make sure they're all right, especially if they might be down and out. So thank you guys. We love you.
So, all right. To our first one. I like this thumbnail.
I didn't do it, but yeah, I didn't do it. I think that was from The Nation, I believe. Yeah, I think it is. I just added the text. But yeah, I do agree it is good. So first story tonight, we're going to talk about, Israel. What else is new? But we're going to talk more about them, more specifically AIPAC and the Congressional Black Caucus, or as I call them, the Congressional Black Crows, because they don't do shit in Congress in terms of leading the way in demonstrating the needs for Black people in this country. But reading this article, and we know, but I think it's always good to kind of see how complicit they are and how they're just kind of symbolic in terms of their standing in government, but just not doing anything or advocating for anything in terms of improving Black American lives in this country. But in terms of their complicity with Israel, I think it's important to kind of know a little bit more of the history, especially with one person that we know, at least for me personally, somewhat well on this show. And we're going to get into that a little bit. And I have a surprise at the end, kind of, that I will share with you in connection to this. But as I said, this is from The Nation, and it's written by Anthony Conwright, where he writes, the Congressional Black Caucus's silent partnership with AIPAC, the influential group of lawmakers, has damaged its reputation as conscience of the Congress by staying silent on the Gaza genocide. So I am going to read about 85% of the article. I did cut out a few paragraphs for time, but you can read any of our articles that we feature. They will be in the description below if you're interested in reading the whole thing yourselves. But Anthony writes, since the International Court's ruling, a growing number of genocide scholars and human rights advocates have concluded that the genocide in Gaza is not merely plausible, but actual. In early September, an overwhelming majority, 86% of the voting members in the International Association of Genocide Scholars, voted to endorse a declaration that Israel's policies and actions in Gaza meet the legal definition of genocide in Article 2 of the United Nations Convention for the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. The UN's own Commission of Inquiry reached the same conclusion a few weeks later. Rabbis and Israeli human rights groups, B'Tselem and Physicians of Human Rights, have testified that their own nation has betrayed the solemn pledge, never again. Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and other groups have witnessed the appalling deaths, displacement, and famine in Gaza and issued the same indictment. Israel is committing acts of genocide. Yet to this day, the Congressional Black Caucus, the longstanding corps of lawmakers dedicated to safeguarding civil rights and known as the conscience of Congress, has not issued a formal declaration condemning Israel. It hasn't even produced a statement calling for a ceasefire. The CBC's silence isn't accidental. More than half of its current 61 members have been endorsed or funded by the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, the powerful U.S. lobbying arm for Israel's agenda. In the 2023-24 election cycle alone, AIPAC endorsed 26 of the caucus's members, raising $4.6 million for them and another $3.5 million for Black Democratic candidates. By accepting AIPAC's endorsements and money, CBC's members are, to use a biblical turn of phrase, selling their birthright for a mess of pottage. AIPAC readily sets aside the political concerns of the CBC in its efforts, spending lavishly on campaigns for GOP members of Congress, targeting measures on racial equality, which totaled more than $17 million in the 2023-2024 cycle.
Behind there.
AIPAC,
hold on.
Oh,
There we go. I fixed it. Perfect.
Actually, you know what? I can read it. I'll just do it if you
You're
just move it forward yourself.
I got it.
I can read it. I have another window open.
Okay.
Where it's easier to read. AIPAC, together with its two political action committees, AIPAC-PAC and United Democracy Project, has one purpose: defending Israel at all costs. We support candidates based on one criteria: their commitment to strengthening the U.S.-Israel relationship, AIPAC spokesperson Marshall Whitman told Politico in 2024. This single-issue litmus test means that the CBC is now beholden to a group that is far more concerned with the state of Israel than it is with the caucus's core mission. And the CBC's resulting silence not only damages its credibility, but also jeopardizes its ability to advocate for the interests of Black Americans, many of whom recognize an ethno-nationalist campaign to eliminate a people. One glaring example of this clash of interest is AIPAC's targeting of Black lawmakers such as Cori Bush of Missouri, who lost her seat last in 2024 for speaking out against Israel's crimes against humanity. This posture predates the start of the war in Gaza in 2023. During the 2022 midterms, AIPAC endorsed candidates with white supremacist views and Republicans who refused to affirm that Joe Biden had won the 2020 election. The group also targeted Black Democratic lawmakers like Pennsylvania Representative Summer Lee, who spoke out against Israel's occupation on the West Bank in Gaza. Lee survived that AIPAC offensive, but now, like other congressional critics of Israel, she has to be prepared for AIPAC-funded primary challenges each time she runs for re-election. This has been AIPAC's standard mode of intimidation in a political system ruled by money and a need to continually raise funds, a total of nearly $4 billion in the 2024 congressional cycle alone. Over that same period, more than 8% of lawmakers in Congress received money from AIPAC. What has rendered the Democratic Party such an impotent voice in combating the Gaza genocide, in other words, is a matter of fundraising math. A single-issue lobby relying on strong financial backing from GOP donors has successfully managed to keep Democratic critics of Israel out of Congress. As one example, look at what happened to Jamal Bowman. In May 2023, while serving as a Democratic representative from New York, Bowman co-sponsored a resolution seeking to ensure that U.S. funds to Israel would not be used to harm Palestinian children. This would seem an uncontroversial aim, but not for AIPAC and its allied PACs. Our ancestors were enslaved and endured the Black Codes, Jim Crow, and housing discrimination, Bowman said in an interview with The Nation. As people who come from that, we have the moral authority to push back on AIPAC's agenda. We are against genocide. We are against the starvation of children. We are against harming innocent people in any context. But Bowman learned the cost of speaking truth to the spending power of AIPAC. When you go against one of their pieces of legislation, depending on what it is, they will email you, relentlessly call you, relentlessly protest outside your office, and stop you from even being able to do your job, he continued. And this coordinated campaign was merely a prelude. In the 2023-24 election cycle, AIPAC spent $100 million, much of it raised from Republican mega donors, targeting Democrats it deemed hostile to Israel. That included an unprecedented outlay of $50 million in a single House race by the group in its successful primary challenge against Bowman. He was replaced on the Democrat ticket by the AIPAC-endorsed former Westchester County Executive George Latimer, a white candidate with a record of racist remarks. So I'm going to pause here for a second. If you zoom out for a second, we can chat a little bit. So, yes, it's true that Bowman basically said no to AIPAC. What Anthony failed to mention, that we've mentioned on this show many times, was that Bowman was endorsed by J Street. J Street is a liberal Israeli lobby firm. So he was endorsed by them. Not sure if he received money from them, but the moment that correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I believe he voted for the Iron Dome, right. I believe. He has gone to, he went to Israel, but I think once he went there, he kind of saw the error of his ways and reneged, which, to be fair, good, but as a Justice Democrat, you should have been for Israel from the jump, at least, So the idea that Justice Democrats did not necessarily keep him accountable for that, nor did DSA, as a DSA candidate, is very sus in of itself. But so I wanted to mention that because it makes it seem like Bowman was totally against Israel when he was basically wishy-washy on the issue himself, given another PAC. And I say that because, this was, at least in our space, mainstream news, how what's his face? Cory Booker and who else? Now Josh Shapiro and Gavin Newsom, they've been questioned about AIPAC now, and they've been kind of, like, I don't know what you're talking about, or it's interesting, or whatever else.
Right.
Like, so number one, just the idea that the Democrats do not even have a statement regarding their liability in terms of getting funding from Israel is, again, sus. Almost like they don't even care to even have a statement pushing back against it, or at least lie about it.
Right.
But I think it's more important, especially given that it may not be a litmus test for a lot of people now, but I think it is starting to be, especially now given that we're sending all this money now with Trump, well, Biden too, to fund weapons. And meanwhile, we're starving here in the streets here. And it's going to become a lot more of a litmus test now that I'm sure probably within the next few months, they're going to try and pivot and say, oh, I don't get funding from AIPAC, but they're going to get money from another Israeli lobby. So kind of going into Jamal Bowman. So while he may refuse AIPAC, he didn't refuse J Street. And I'm sure a lot of Democrats will probably pull that same swerve on us within the next few months if they're smart.
Who was the one that met with like Palestinian groups and then went back? That was Torres, right? Maybe?
No, that's Frost.
Okay. Right.
That's Frost. Yeah. So funny again, haven't mentioned him, but it's funny how like all these mainstream independent people are now even calling Frost, he's a progressive and whatever.
Yeah, it's like fucking Mom Donnie's meeting with fucking already getting bought out by like, Israeli firms and whatever. It's just they make sure to not do it through AIPAC. They do it through, what is it? Slope Park, whatever the other one is. I forget the name of it. It's just they're all bought and paid for politicians.
Right.
Like at this point, you got a D or R next to your name, especially.
Right. So be careful. So watch out for that, fam. Because I'm sure they're going to pull the swerve on us within the next few months and saying like, oh, I don't accept money from AIPAC. I think some who are more calculated are already beginning to do that. But the Israeli lobby is huge. And it's different flavors in terms of, that lobby in terms of, AIPAC is generally like, we don't give a shit about committing genocide to Palestinians, to like someone like J Street were like, oh, Netanyahu's the problem, but we still believe that Israel has a right to defend itself and people have a right to have a safe, Israelis have a right to have a home or safe haven in Israel. So watch out for that because the Israeli lobby is huge. There are different arms to it. And any one of them has the potential of capturing, politicians in order to do their bidding in the name of Israel. So just wanted to say that because that's something in regards to Bowman that the author failed to mention, whether he knew it or not. But Bowman was endorsed by J Street, which is another PAC, Israeli PAC. So, so he wasn't totally clean either. But anyway, I digress, but an important digression. So let's continue. Bowman was not alone. Pro-Israel groups spent millions to defeat other Black members of Congress, including Bush and Lee, as well as Maryland Representative Donna Edwards. These CBC members all championed Medicare for All, expanded affordable housing, and other initiatives that would directly benefit Black communities. Lee is the only CBC member in that cohort of Israel's critics who's still in office, at least right now. The 2024 purge represented a dramatic upsurge in the group's battle against Black progressives. Records indicate that AIPAC did not spend any money against Bush or Bowman during the 2022 elections. After Bush sponsored a resolution in October 2023 that called for de-escalation and a ceasefire in Gaza, AIPAC spent $8.6 million to replace her on a Democratic ticket with Leslie Bell, who abandoned his bid to become Missouri's first black senator in order to supplant Bush in the House. According to Open Secrets, spending against Bush in 2022 only reached $170,602, which means that AIPAC boosted anti-Bush and pro-opposition spending by nearly 5,000% in the 2024 cycle. AIPAC's anti-Bush and pro-Bell cash offensive also worked out to 4 times the $2 million amount that the progressive PAC Justice Democrats contributed to Bush's primary campaign and anti-Bell efforts. So much money to be had that could go to other things. Ridiculous. Progressive organizations urged Hakeem Jeffries, the CBC's highest-ranked member in the House of Representatives and the Democratic minority leader, to intervene against AIPAC's campaign to defeat House critics of Israel. But Jeffries and the CBC's 7-person leadership team said nothing, as pro-Israel interests primary its members. It's not hard to see why. Jeffries and every member of the current CBC leadership have received money from the pro-Israel lobby, and AIPAC is endorsing Jeffries, as well as the 5 of the 7 members of the CBC leadership in the upcoming 26 midterms. The 2 members of the CBC's leadership not endorsed by AIPAC are Louisiana Representative Troy Carter and California Representative Sidney Calaga-Dove. Calaga-Dove nonetheless garnered the endorsement of the Democratic majority of Israel, a pro-Israel PAC that spent $1.1 million to oust Bowman and Bush. Jeffries and all 7 members of the CBC's leadership voted to send military aid to Israel. None co-sponsored any bills or resolutions to limit such aid or block U.S. arms sales. 4 of the 6 CBC members who currently serve on the House Foreign Affairs Committee have a similar record of eloquent silence of Israel's relentless war in Gaza and U.S. support for it. The brute fundraising logic here means that the CBC members who hold the most political weight are muzzled by AIPAC money. So when Bowman, for example, began to dissent from the Caucus's party line on Israel, he was isolated from the support of Congress's most powerful coalition of black legislators. Bowman was not always on AIPAC's enemy list. Indeed, AIPAC set out to recruit him at the beginning of his political career. Even before I was a viable candidate, before there was any polling, they had me within 20, 30 points. AIPAC had reached out to me for a meeting, Bowman recalled. But they didn't reach out to me through AIPAC. They came through a very well-regarded organization in New York City called 100 Black Men. Bowman agreed to meet with a representative of 100 Black Men, believing that the discussion would involve the group's mission of collaborating with political leaders to realize painful, meaningful gains for the Black community. I told him clearly, I do not want to meet with you and talk about AIPAC, Bowman said. He agreed to that. We met and had a long conversation, but at the end of the conversation, he still gave me a packet of information to take with me about AIPAC. And I'm sure they'll reach out to all promising candidates across the country to try and get them to support AIPAC's agenda before they even get to office. AIPAC appeals to Black candidates by exploiting the proud tradition of Jewish American support for the civil rights movement. I'm going to hold my tongue for a second there. But that display of moral and political solidarity was not a covenant with Black Americans to turn a blind eye to apartheid or genocide. I heard it before to my face, Bowman said. We were there for you. We were there for you during the civil rights movement. We were there for you during the Black Lives Matter movement. Be there for us. See, this is the kind of bullshit that pisses me off because, and I had a long talk with Indy about this, I think over a year ago. Those of you, like, this is exactly what we were discussing. It's the idea that, look, Jewish Americans came alongside Black Americans in terms of the civil rights movement, you know, because obviously that would benefit them, you know, and once we had those civil rights, you know, like, and this is my frustration, like, and I'm not calling, and I'm not trying to be mean, I'm not trying to disparage Jewish Americans, but you came alongside us for your safety in terms of what had happened to you or how you were treated post-Holocaust, it's like during the Holocaust era especially. But now you guys are kind of shielded by whiteness. Hell, like people may not necessarily know you're Jewish unless your name kind of gives it away or you yourself give it away of you being Jewish. And you get to benefit now, generally speaking, in terms of, being shielded behind, I will say it, white supremacy and what that kind of offers you. Black people have not been able to progress in the same way since the civil rights movement. And there are issues that we still need in terms of reparations, whether you believe in that or not. But I think at minimum, issues like universal health care, housing, all these things that would also apply to you too, nowhere to be found. Like, you just kind of come alongside when it's convenient, but not necessarily when it involves Black people and how we need like liberation in that regard. And you're not necessarily there for, and again, my opinion, but that's how I feel. And I had to, but you can watch that interview that I had with Indy, and he mostly agrees. And I'm sure, Indy, you have some thoughts you probably will say in the chat, but it's almost kind of like, again, you come alongside out of self-preservation for yourselves because you know that you're able to benefit. So it just kind of shows like how, and I'll get more into this later, how Black people, especially in this country, really influence culturally how we're able to progress in a lot of ways.
Right.
But almost to our detriment at times. And so, like the No King's Marches as a prime example happened this past weekend. There are Black people who are like, I'm not going. You guys go ahead because we're tired. Now, I was against it, and we talked about it here, and I know you had that conversation with Indy for other reasons. We just felt it was just kind of performative. But I get how Black people are feeling in terms of like, well, out here, we have been, we've been oppressed. We've been out in these streets for a very long time. And for many things, especially when it comes to us, we do not feel that same support all the time, if ever, from people who allegedly call themselves allies to us in terms of the things we need. So I totally get that sentiment. And here, this is kind of what pisses me off. This is kind of a political blackmail. It's like, we were there for you during the civil rights movement. Now you need to be there for us, not forgetting the fact that you guys are complicit in genocide right now. And given our experience in terms of slavery, Jim Crow, Reconstruction, apartheid, like within the diaspora, you should think a little better of us than that to kind of come alongside. So this also kind of speaks to these leadership types in the Congressional Black Caucus, how they sold themselves really for political whores. That's exactly what they are. Like, and I'll say that to their face. Like, you literally are giving away our history and our advocacy in terms of fighting for the very things that you are kind of complicit in now. So so it works both ways. Like, you would think that these leaders will have a better stance on this, but it just shows how much they have sold out in terms of, again, just being there for themselves and really ultimately not being there for the American people in that regard. Because, as I said, civil rights movement, we were fighting for that, but other people of color and women also benefited from that. We did that. And we're not necessarily receiving that kind of, solidarity in kind when we still have those same issues that are affecting us, that we're not getting that same support. But it's the idea of like, oh, you must support us in this because you're Black people and you've done it before in the past and you need to do it again for us. Like, so yeah, I totally get the frustration of that and why Black people, like, if they're really are genuine about it, are kind of over it right now.
Yep. Can't blame you. And it's not the first time they've sold you guys out. So, you know.
Right. Right.
Like,
so again, I'm just saying this not even so much against AIPAC, but more these Black leaders who many of them lived through that time and should know better. But they've sold out for whatever reason, just for their position or their self-preservation, I would argue. But anyway, very telling statement and all this very disgusting statement, AIPAC made. But whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Israel lobby's support for Black lawmakers has already rested on critical backing of Israel. On January 30th, 1972, Representative Charles Diggs, chair of what was then a 13-member caucus, announced plans for a national Black political convention to take place on March 10th through 12th in Gary, Indiana, to identify and ratify a national Black political agenda for 1972 and beyond. More than 10,000 Black Americans, Black nationalists, intellectuals, civil rights groups, and the CBC met in Gary and published a 55-page National Black Agenda containing resolutions and recommendations for measures to promote Black equity, equality, and racial justice. Debate swirled around several measures considered for the platform, including economic empowerment, the possibility formation of a third party representing Black Americans, and whether the agenda should endorse busing to achieve integration in public schools. But the contentious debate devolved into irreparable rupture when it came to the question of Israel and Palestine. Black nationalists demanded a resolution to cut U.S. aid to Israel, return Palestinian lands, and affirm Palestinian self-determination, but members of the CBC recoiled. Facing pressure from Jewish organizations, the CBC denounced the resolution, affirmed its support for Israel, and refused to endorse the Black national agenda. Jesus Christ, like even back then. Instead, the caucus drafted its own platform, which plotted a decidedly moderate course, especially in foreign policy. 1 year after its inception, the Congressional Black Caucus chose alliance with the Israel lobby over the support of Palestinians advocated by politically independent pro-Black organizations, a choice that continues to define the CBC's policies today.
clickies. There we go.
It's true that the Democratic Party writ large was fiercely pro-Israel throughout the post-war years. In fact, it was a Democrat, Senator Henry Scoop Jackson of Washington, who was the political godfather of the belligerent Zionist neoconservative movement. Yet even in that context, the CBC's staunch report for Israel is striking, particularly given its self-appointed mission of serving as a conscience of Congress and its principled opposition to the Vietnam War. During Israel's successive military campaign in the 1980s, including the invasion of Lebanon in 1982 and the suppression of the Palestinian Intifada in 1987, CBC members reliably voted to continue sending U.S. aid and military support to the Jewish state. After a 1987 U.S. State Department report found that Israel had violated the UN ban on providing arms to South Africa's apartheid regime, some CBC members did start to denounce in scathing terms America's lavish support for Israel and its status as a leading recipient of U.S. aid. In response, AIPAC brokered a deal with CBC leaders to prevent members of the caucus from singling out Israel for selling military systems to South Africa on a regular basis. In 1990, Michigan Democrat Representative and CBC member George Crockett signed a February Dear Colleague letter urging support for Kansas Senator Robert Dole's proposal to cut the $3 billion in aid that the United States was sending to Israel each year by 5%. 10 of the CBC's 24 members signed the letter, including Ron Dellums of California. Dellums later had a change of heart after meeting with AIPAC representatives. When the CBC pressed an alternative budget to Congress in March of that year, Israel's $3 billion allotment remained intact. The dynamic that took hold between the CBC and AIPAC during those early years hasn't changed, but now it's enforced through astronomical amounts of campaign money from the lobby and the threats of political retaliation via primary challenges. As of this writing, only 14 of the 57 House members of the CBC have co-sponsored H.R. 3565, a bill to limit defense material and services to Israel. Not surprisingly, just one of those 14 was endorsed by AIPAC. And just 6 members of the CBC co-sponsored HJ Resolution 83, a resolution providing for congressional disapproval of the proposed voluntary military sale to Israel of certain defense articles and services. This track record stands out in especially high relief against the CBC's relative outspokenness on other genocides and atrocities. The caucus spearheaded the legislative fight against South African apartheid, sponsoring more than 15 bills opposing the white supremacist regime there. The last of these measures was co-sponsored by all 20 members of the caucus. The CBC's anti-apartheid bills call for economic sanctions on South Africa, including bans on new investments, while requiring the president to report on progress towards the dismantling of South Africa's apartheid regime. In 2005, 41 of the CBC's 43 members co-sponsored the Darfur Genocide Accountability Act. In 2019, 50 of the CBC's 55 House members voted to recognize the Armenian genocide. Most recently, 10 of the CBC's 57 members agreed that Russia has committed acts of genocide in Ukraine. By comparison, only 7 went on the record to acknowledge Israel's acts of genocide in Gaza.
Yep.
I
might have clicked. Yeah.
Wait.
Go back one?
No, okay. Oh, I think I moved several. There we go. 17. Yeah, in July 2023, 44 of the CBC's 51 members voted in favor of a resolution declaring that Israel is not an apartheid state. Bowman and Bush were among the 6 who voted against it. When it comes to Palestine, the CBC has consistently faltered in its support for human rights and its repudiation of genocide. Their pattern is unmistakable. Israel operates beyond the radar of the CBC's own conscience. The unresolved internal tensions fueling the Congressional Black Caucus's conspiracy of silence on the Gaza genocide came to the foray once again during Senator Cory Booker's 25-hour speech on the Senate floor in March. Booker's performance broke the previous filibuster record set by white supremacist Strom Thurmond's day-long speech against civil rights legislation in 1957. Booker's speech cataloged nearly every abuse against democratic governments and constitutional order perpetrated by the second Trump administration, but contained no mention of his uncritical support for Israel's apartheid regime or its continued financial and military backing of the genocide in Gaza. And, obviously we know this given just within the last week, he's been interviewed and basically gave shit answers regarding his stance on AIPAC. He called the money that he gets insignificant. And as I probably said last week, if it was so insignificant, the money you're getting, which is over $800 million, according to you, over a lifetime appointment, if it's that money is insignificant, why did you take the money? So again, you are never political whore. So, as it turns out, the politics of genocide also supplied the backdrop of Thurmond's 24-hour filibuster. 6 years before he rose to block the Civil Rights Bill, the CRC had named him We Charge Genocide. The group charged that Thurmond had violated Article 3 of the Genocide Convention by engaging in direct and public indictment to commit acts of genocide against Black Americans. And Thurmond's filibuster did more than stall the 1957 Civil Rights Act. It also delayed the swearing in of Wisconsin Senator William Proxima, the man who, over the course of 19 years, would give 3,211 speeches on the Senate floor urging the United States to ratify the Genocide Convention, which would make genocide a federal crime in the United States. Furman, who died in 2003, also opposed the Genocide Convention Implementation Act and sought to obstruct its passage, a natural extension of his white supremacist politics. And question, Reef, wasn't Biden a mentee of his?
Yep.
So this is...
I mean, and the rest of them are all Goldwater girls. So, you know, like, this is what happened to the Democratic Party. Like, the Dixiecrats came in, took over, Blue Dog Democrats or whatever, right? Like, you know, all of them from the South having to give fealty to, you know, Southern ideology and whatnot, you know? So,
right.
But, yeah, I mean, welcome to politics of the last fucking 80 years, you know? The same shit, different day, you know?
Unlike Furman, Booker was not trying to eradicate official recognitions of genocides altogether, just looking to evade the political demands of acknowledging the one in Gaza. That, however, isn't a moral distinction worth making. Booker's evasion, much like the rest of the CBC's leadership stance on this defining issue of basic justice and human rights, represents the outcome of a cold cash transaction. The most prominent CBC member in the Senate, Booker has received $857,313 from pro-Israel PACs and individual donors during his time in office. And once again, they got what they paid for. Booker voted against Senator Bernie Sanders' March measure to prevent the sale of thousands of 1,000-pound bombs to Israel, along with the guidance kits that would turn them into precision-guided weapons. The 3 other CBC members in the Senate also supported Sanders' resolution. When Booker broke Furman's record in March, he framed it as a triumph over the ghosts of white supremacy. It just really irked me, he said, that the longest speech on our great Senate floor was someone who was trying to stop people like me from being in the Senate. Yet Corey left out a big part of the story. Furman's tirade was not simply against the principle of Black political representation or the Civil Rights Act of 1957, but against the notion that the suffering of Black Americans deserved any recognition or intervention from the federal government. In his own marathon speech, Booker never once uttered the word genocide in relation to Gaza. That silence unwittingly extended the logic behind the very tradition he sought to conquer. This paradox is emblematic of the Congressional Black Caucus today. The CBC claims the mandating to survey data sympathize with Palestinians. A December 2023 Carnegie poll showed that 95% of Black Americans rejected the idea of showing unwavering support for Israel. Black Americans disapprove of Benjamin Netanyahu at a higher rate than any other demographic voting bloc and believe, by a 10% margin of the sample size, that Israel's attacks on Gaza are unjustified and harm too many innocent Palestinians. Nearly half of Black Americans believe that Israel is committing a genocide against the Palestinian people. A 2024 Carnegie poll showed that 86% of Black Americans would have liked to see the United States call for immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, which is very counter, because I know Corey said on the I Had It podcast that Black people in his city of Newark don't really care, or the numbers are insignificant, or whatever he said, towards what's happening in Gaza. And given by this poll, that seems to be kind of opposite of what he said, especially given, I think we reported on the story maybe about a year ago, where in schools in Newark, they were basically prevented from talking about Palestine, the very city that Cory Booker is representative of. So again, he's lying that Black people don't care about it when the economy is in the shithole. Like, no, Corey, like, we can do more than 2 things at the same time, especially given how we are very aware of how you will just uncritically send money to Israel with your vote, but you're not able to feed your community in Newark. And as a person who lived outside of Newark for a good chunk of basically through my teen years, there's a large Black Muslim population in Newark. So they're well aware of what's happening in Gaza.
Right.
So again, he was obfuscating, and this was the issue that I had with those ladies on that podcast. They didn't put, now again, they may not know that information, but they should have pushed back on him on that, given the stat that we see here. So again, like, Corey can't meet me in the street because I'm also from Newark, bitch. So I can call this shit out to you, like with my hands tied. But anyway, I digress. 2 years into the Gaza genocide, there has been some progress.
Whatever that means.
More than half of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus now support a ceasefire. Like 2 years too late. But while a ceasefire is a step in the right direction, it will do nothing to end the occupation that Palestinians continue to suffer under. A ceasefire resolution that does not name genocide does not reflect a politics grounded in conscience. It is expedient political cover of the lowest order. Actually, just one more slide to this article. Sorry. Probably should have said there.
Yeah.
But these are words we inherit like heirlooms. Words that come to us wrapped in the pain of centuries. Genocide is one of those words. It does not simply encompass the death on a mass scale. It evokes the auction block, the terrorist legacy of Jim Crow, and the smoke that curled above the camps in Nazi-occupied Europe. What is happening before our eyes in Gaza belong on the same tragic ledger. And the leaders of the CBC, claiming to be descendants of a history that their ancestors paid for in blood, are refusing to call Israel's crimes by their true name. This is a moment when the CBC can present itself as the conscience of Congress with honor, by leading the effort to guide this country through a key moral test of the 21st century. It's true that demanding an end to U.S. aid to Israel on the grounds that it's advocating a genocide would likely expose legislators to yet more retaliation from AIPAC and the Israel lobby. But it's equally true that the CBC must meet the genuine challenge of this historic moment. Adopting a position of online defiance to Israel and its genocide in Gaza would lead the CBC and the Democratic Party in a new direction that both organizations desperately need to follow. Instead of trying to wish away the atrocities committed by Israel, the Congressional Black Caucus could build and lead a multiracial coalition of resistance to a lobby that betrays the caucus's mission, besieges its members, and injures its constituents. By resisting with a unified voice, the leaders of the CBC can make a difference. It's time to stand up. I have a little bit more to say, well, in connection with this, but in my last slide. But any thoughts? I know this is kind of old hat.
Yeah.
But anything that's kind of striking to you, like in terms of, so, I mean, it just goes to prove this is not a recent phenomenon with AIPAC. I mean, we've kind of talked about it on the show. AIPAC has been a thing since the 50s. But I think given its hand within the Black legislative arm of Congress, probably since the 60s too, like it's evident here that, AIPAC is a powerful bitch. And the fact that they have our Black leaders kind of, well, it's funny, like how, they're well aware of every other most atrocities that they see around the world that they're more than happy to declare resolutions for and stand up against. But as the author said, Israel is their, is the very thing that they, that they're silent on. But mostly because of the money that they receive to keep quiet, which, given, and again, it's selling out to the very people that you should be representing in terms of the progressive policies that will not only help Black people, but will essentially help all people in this country. So, and I think that AIPAC, in a lot of ways, kind of realizes that, which makes all of this more insidious, is that Black people lead culture in terms of policy, in terms of the thing, based on our experience. So keeping them at bay kind of prevents our progress, but at the cost of uplifting people who are willing to commit genocide against the very things that we were fighting against by slavery, Jim Crow, all the things here. So the disconnect, the cognitive dissonance is astounding, but not surprising, and it just makes me more pissed off. Especially it's like, oh, we were there for you many years ago. Now you got to help us in this way, and it's just a very callous, a very selfish, and that's saying it nicely, selfish stance of using our history to justify what you're doing, but not only that, for us, turning our back on the very history that we trying to liberate ourselves from. So it's just really painful to kind of make that connection.
Right.
In terms of how our Black leaders have sold us out.
Yep.
But they're the ones who are going to declare like, oh, we need this or oh, we need that. Like, but you're not doing that for us now.
Anyway, it's always fucking
like
30 years late when they get to it, So, but I don't know. It's electoral, political, like tale as old as time for most of us.
Right.
So
I have I have a little treat for you. Funny enough, we were talking about Queen Latifah and Live as a Single the other night. Great show, best show ever, better than Friends, and all this shit, all the things. So
I don't think I've ever watched. I think I may have caught a couple of episodes. I don't think I ever managed to watch it. Like
right. But I'm watching as a fan of Living Single. Those of you who grew up with that show in the 90s, I am watching their podcast that's led by Kim Coles and Erica Alexander right now. And I think this was a short that they released on YouTube, I believe last week, on their show, where Erica Alexander, basically to give context, so Erica Alexander, comic and graphic novel with her then husband. So obviously being a Black woman trying to get into sci-fi, like there was a lot of opposition within the industry of producing it or publishing it, as you can imagine. So, so Erica kind of is talking about here, how the idea of having to make a way out of no way, is very important within the Black community. So let's watch this, but there were a couple of a lot of the stuff here is not relevant to us, but there are a couple of things that she did say that I do want to pull from in terms of what I just read, and I think in terms of what I want to share in the next article. So let's play the short, and then I'll make the connection for you.
For Black people, the past is painful, the present precarious, but the future is free. We always see ourselves in the future. In fact, the future that you're living in is because Black people created it. The blues, rock and roll, all these things, everything that you think is great about America culturally, it came from Black people. And y'all, it's a community thing, but don't ask us not to see the future. And he
sometimes
said,
that's all we had. That's all we had.
That's all we had. You took our past away from us, didn't give us a present. We have to look to the future in order to live and survive. Plus, he said, look at Octavia Butler, the science fiction star, and Samuel Delaney and all this. And he says, I don't want to say anything that maybe y'all figure it out from here, who this studio head is. He said, the number one science fiction star in the world is Will Smith. And he's at your studio, Independence Day.
Didn't they call him the
Men in Black?
Mr. July 4th, because every July 4th.
Did it. He actively, strategically said, I'm going after sci-fi and those things. I Am Legend. He didn't even know who was paying his check. So we walked out of there and we really kind of down. He said, oh, F it, I'll draw it. And he taught himself after 50 how to draw and illustrate comics. And he sent a few of those panels to Mike Richardson of Dark Horse. And Mike Richardson said, I'll publish this. By the end of the year, we had a published comic that became a Best American comic. And then in a few years, we got Concrete Park, the graphic novel, which Forbes said was one of the best graphic novels in America. That is turning a crisis into opportunity. But it took us having to also recreate ourselves and realize that the world would not see us the way we wanted to. So we had to create the way. And the way was not going to be through that door, but through a door that had DIY in it, do it yourself. And then a different white man who said, I'll publish that. It shows you the community is there. There are people who do see the future, but first see the future for yourself. If not, create the way, create the spaceship. And I always said that if that became successful and I've got to write this book, that I would write a book called How This Got to Mars and dedicate it to that studio head. Booyah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Erica Alexander.
Okay.
So a couple of things. Again, a lot of it doesn't apply, but there are a couple. So what I want to pull from is what Erica said at the beginning and what she said at the end. The idea, especially for Black people, all we have is the future. Like, we don't know our past, most of us. We're living in the present, which sucks. So the only thing that we have to keep going is trying to think of a future better than what we have right now. And that's the thing that we're trying to create for ourselves. But I can argue that's not especially right now, that's not limited to just Black people. That involves everybody, especially right now. But the other thing that she said at the end that I think is very important is when there's
You're good. I think. I hear you at least. Care Bear? You there? Testing 1, 2. Test. Care Bear. You
yes.
back? Cool.
Yes.
We heard you whole time.
So a couple of things there. So what she said, not sure what was cut, but like what she said in the end, when there's crisis comes opportunity. So I believe that was from Albert Einstein. And I think we've been at that spot, and especially now, we're in the middle of a crisis right now in this country. We were sharing on we were talking about before we went live, with the government shutdown, how people are not going to have food stamps. So if our politicians are going for a record, a lot of people in this country are going to be in dire straits. But I think the problem is, and I think I shared this last week, I
still hear you.
Oh, you're still hearing? Okay. It's just the screen that froze, I think.
Yeah, weird.
I think, what I get frustrated with, especially in our space with mainstream commentators, is they will say, what
will they say?
Okay. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Weird.
Discord doesn't want me to talk.
Apparently not.
Discord doesn't want me.
What did they say?
Well, commentators are like, GOP sucks. Republican, Democratic leadership sucks, but we need to vote for them. And it's like, no, the fuck we don't, because what have they offered us? Like, you're perpetuating, it's been the hamster wheel for like, especially within the last decade. Like, you can admit that the Democrats are shit, but you're not talking about, like, at least what we try to do in our section of the space, trying to talk about, like, let's think of an alternative that we're not relying on these sons of bitches for the things that we need. Like, we need to move away from these politicians, because it's still the idea of, like, we need to vote you in, and in the hope of trying to do something for us. And it's like, they've proven time and time again that they're not going to do shit for us. As we're seeing with the Black Congressional Black Caucus, how they worked, and you see within the article, just not even in that, but just like issues that are pertinent to Black people. Have we moved the needle on any progressive policy that will liberate us in this country, that will make us better? That there has not been any movement on that in God knows how long. And instead of trying to move away from the very system that they're trying to keep us in, and kind of keep us in this like uncertain time frame, we need to think beyond that and kind of think of like, how can we take care of ourselves? What community organizations that we have to get involved with? Who are the people who are true allies that will really kind of be those liberators that we need to be? Like, and as Erica said, like, we need to do it our fucking selves. Stop relying on these politicians to kind of do the work for us. And I think that's basically been my main frustration on all of this. It's like, you know, we call out the problem, we recognize the problem, but the solution that we say is, oh, we have to bring more of these stupid motherfuckers into office in the hope that they're going to do something for us. And at this point, I'm like, if you're not going to do it for me, I'm going to have to do it myself. And who else is going to do this with me to try and attempt to bring us a little closer to the liberation that we need? And as it's shown in the article, Black Caucus is not going to do it for us. The politicians on both sides are not going to do it for us. And we need to start talking about those alternative means that we're able to fend for ourselves here. Like, we don't do that enough. And I think we need to start. And I would also argue, even in our section of the space too, we're not really having those conversations. It's like, it's still like the electoral politics thing of, even if it's not for the Democrat, it's for the Greens. And it's like, within, and like, we played a clip of Fee calling this out. Like, Greens suck just as bad. Because if you don't deal with the issues within the system, you're just going to repeat the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different result. And I don't know about you, Reef, but I'm tired of the insanity. You know? Like, we need to move differently. And
So-
that will mean having to... Go ahead.
I sent you this the other day. This like discussion with like Angela Davis and Turay and whatever, Fannie Lou Harmer and whatnot, but they ask him essentially like, like, can anything be done? Pretty much, you know, like was like the first question, you know, and I wanted to get to.
The only question would be, what kind of change do we want? I think everybody would be for that society. The question is whether or not it could come about under the present system of this government, or whether that system must be changed. I, for one, believe that it cannot come about under the present system, a capitalist system. That system must be changed. I believe that. And I think that if we have the same objectives, then it doesn't make a difference where we work. As a matter of fact, a man working to change the system with that objective in mind can do very much inside the system, once he doesn't lose sight of his objective. An example that comes to mind is that a few years ago, it was found out that one of the advisors for President Thieu was working for the Viet Cong.
I do think that we make a mistake if we talk about this in terms of absolute doctrines. If we talk about it in terms of black people and integration or black people and separation. It seems to me that that's a false dichotomy that has been set up in terms of the way in which the debate is discussed. The real issue I feel for black people is one of empowerment and one of redefinition of the way in which black and white people are interacting in society. I feel that's what we must be about.
Well, I think that if you consider the fact that this system, this capitalist system under which we're living today, is designed in such a way that nobody except a privileged few can attempt to express themselves or contribute to anything, there's no doubt about the fact that we have to talk about revolutionizing the system before anybody can live in any kind of human fashion together. I would just like
that was what I wanted to bring was
to point out the fact that I have seen with my eyes societies where people of different colors have learned how to live together, each maintaining their own cultural identity, but each fighting to build and to continue to construct a socialist revolution together. I was in Cuba not very long ago, and I saw with my own eyes how black people, brown people, and white people have reached the point where they can work in harmony towards the building of a socialist society.
But, I mean, she was essentially saying, like, you're going to have revolution before, like, we're going to be able to change shit, pretty much. At least that's how I interpreted it.
Right, but I think the mistake that people make is that people might subconsciously believe that the revolution has to come through the means within the system that we currently have now.
Yeah, no. That's like the worst way to do it. You know?
Right.
So,
like, it has to come from the outside. As Erica is saying, DIY, do it yourself. Like, we saw and we've seen examples of that in history in terms of the Black Panthers and what they did. They didn't do it through the government. They were like, fuck it, we're going to do it our damn selves, serve our community the best we can. And that was what became a threat to the very system that essentially got infiltrated. So if our government leaders are not scared of you, you ain't doing it right. Like, and we have the power to show them how. Like, and I admit, I am not the expert on this, but we need to start thinking outside that box besides, oh, we need to vote for these people in, even though I hate them so much. Like, that's not going to get us anywhere at this point, you know? And we have seen time and time again, and I get angry, especially in the last week, because you know this, because I vented to you this. Like, how bigger commentators have more of a reach than us are watch next year, because they're calling out Democrats now, but within next year, it's like, we got to vote for them. And like one in particular that really pissed me off, Karen Hunter. Like I remember having a conversation with her several years ago before INM was a thing. Like, she had issues with Bernie. Like, and at the time I was very much a Bernie stan. I was going back and forth with her in terms of why I think Bernie was, in my mind, a good candidate. Now, in hindsight, she had every right to be suspicious of Bernie. But I heard her do a podcast recently where she was like, because she lives, I believe she's in New York, New Jersey. She was talking about Cory Booker, and she was kind of commenting on Cory Booker. So she was basically bitching off about Cory Booker, but in the same breath, she was like, if I had a choice between voting for him and a Republican candidate, I'm going to vote for Cory because I'm more concerned about my self-preservation. And I'm like, so you're basically being selfish in terms of the self-preservation for yourself because you have a little bit of privilege. Meanwhile, there are plenty of Black women and Black men who are in dire straits than you, who, regardless of whoever is in office, they're not getting any better, but you're going to vote for the very person who's going to perpetuate that same conditions, in addition to perpetuating similar systems overseas. Make that make sense.
Mhm.
You had an issue with Bernie, who, granted, we didn't like his things weren't necessarily that great either, but they were probably a step closer to what we need as far as liberation for us. But you don't have those same concerns about Cory Booker. Like, get the fuck out of my face. And that's the kind of bullshit and the kind of this that I am seeing and hearing, and it's pissing me off. Like, you know, these are people who are allegedly independent, who are saying this bullshit. Instead, they should be saying the stuff that, now, granted, Angela Davis went off, you know.
Yeah, she's got her own issues, don't she?
Right,
Like,
but when she was radicalized in her younger days, she was talking about separating herself, Kwame Ture as well, having to separate ourselves from our government leaders in order to get anything done. And these are the discussions that we need to have. But instead, it's just like, oh, we have to vote, we have to vote, we have to vote, we have to vote, we have to self-preservate, we have to get Trump out.
mm-hmm.
Like, and not talking about the very things that actually are going to help people, or at least get us closer to the idea of like not being so dependent on these politicians and start doing shit for ourselves that can actually make them a little nervous, and maybe giving them the call, like infiltration or not, but at least make them know, oh, we don't need you for shit. We're capable of doing this shit on our own and better than you.
Yep.
So that's the kind of stuff I would like to be, the conversations I would like to be a part of. So, you know, as Erica said in the clip, instead of waiting for people to build the spaceship your damn self. Take yourself to space. Like, don't let these people feel like you need them in order to get anything done. Do it yourself. And I'm more than willing to have those conversations with people who are willing to have that. Not this electoral bullshit that keeps people in a cage.
Yep. Pretty
I'm
simple.
done. So, too long of a segment, but important, I think. But regardless, that's why YouTube demonetizes us, because we talk about this shit. We talk about the shit, I hope, that matters to folks, and not this like sensationalist bullshit of just trying to get people riled up and angry and like all in the drama of it all and all stuff. So if you want to watch that, great, that's fine. You know, you have that right to watch, but hopefully you feel like we're able to talk about stuff that matters, and maybe hopefully having some room in having these deeper conversations where we're actually able to do something. That being said, if you want to support us, and as I said, we understand times are hard right now for folks, so don't give to us if you're struggling, please. But if you do have some extra money that you want to give in terms of helping us keep the lights on here, as well as support, you know, different things that we care about, you can scan the QR code that you see on your screen, or go to the Ko-fi link. And if you're in the chat YouTube, if you forget, type in !donate, all one word, and the Ko-fi link will pop up. You can also give on Substack, PayPal, and Cash App. And as we say, fam, we are very appreciative. You're few but mighty, but we want to grow. We want to be able to have these conversations where we're able to talk in more revolutionary stance in terms of actually doing stuff for ourselves that can lead to liberation for all people. So if you want it, please share this in order to get the word out, and in order to have people have another voice to share a different point of view than probably what you're hearing in the space right now. So help us by liking, sharing, and subbing to our content, and let us know what you think. You know, like what do you believe how we should move forward? Like, we could see how, especially for me, in my community, how our leaders have sold us out, not just with Israel, but other means, which affects all of you. So what do you think we should be doing in order to move away from the Union Party to actually get us a little bit closer to the things that we actually need that helps all people? make sure you leave a comment and let us know what you're thinking. Help us get to free K. I think we're about 400 away. So we hope to hit that by the end of this year. And thanks for watching. Apologize it was a long segment, but I think it was worthwhile.
Yeah. Cool. We should check in with chat. We were having fun talking about Britishisms. That was enjoyable in chat. You know, I brought up Greg sausage rolls and HP sauce, which I know you miss HP sauce. I know you miss it. Like, when's the last time you've seen HP sauce? Like when you were in Britain, pretty much. Like they don't have that shit here. I think
you can get it here at certain places, but I don't have that. I really never had that. Then again, I don't eat steak that often.
It's like brown sauce. What is brown sauce? Yeah. It's brown and it's sauce, you know, but like, I don't know. It's just funny stuff over there. Like Carveries.
Steak sauce. Steak
sauce. Sure. Like people, like the whole restaurant just for like roast meat is interesting. You know, this is weird to me. But
Kieran Pine says Collin stole our Twitter. What Twitter script?
I don't know.
Like, what does that mean?
Idea.
What? Let us know in the chat what you mean by that.
What was it?
But he also said,
go ahead.
In part, we follow U.S. politics to see what's coming. The former colonizer has become the colonized. So you know that Kieran's in the UK. So
yeah.
Yes.
Next story is directed at you. So stay tuned. Jacqueline says, trouble is a lot of foreign policy affects domestic policy. And how do people at the grassroots have influence over foreign policy? And it's an interesting question because this is stuff we talk about. Like behind the scenes, like what the fuck do anybody do? And it's like I personally don't think like the classic thing to this was like public pressure, right? If you got enough awareness and people in the street and you protested at these people's places, right, and made people more aware, especially their constituency, to pressure the politician. I just don't think politicians care. They just don't give a fuck. Like, you can pressure them all you want, which we have.
American politicians don't care. Like, they obfuscate, again, Cory Booker obfuscated in his interview that what does, and actually, which is funny because I think like a lot of, I'm hearing this talking point from a lot of influencers now, especially over Gaza. It's like, oh, I care about what's happening, but we need to take care of our shit here, which, while true, does not tell the full story of how our taxpayer dollars and hell, like, give you a more recent example, how our tax dollars right now are benefiting Argentina.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Argentina, that fucking thing. We're probably going to talk about that next week or whatever.
Well, in 2 weeks, because we have a special live stream next week. During our segment. So during our time. So, but like, and that's what I've seen a lot of people kind of crashing out on, especially over food stamps. Like, you're crashing out over people, or some people are celebrating. I said this on Twitter, celebrating people losing their food stamps or possibly losing their food stamps. Have that same energy for Trump giving away how many billions of dollars to Argentina for a bailout?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, what are the people supposed to do? Check in with them
in terms of how they spend their fucking money,
like
our money.
Yeah,
you're
but
not going
like,
to check in on that.
How? Like how? Like, it's one thing to show up at these, like, how do you actually call them out? Like, we could scream on Twitter about it all day. We could scream in their faces about it all day. They go right back to their boardroom, smoke their cigar, and do it anyway. Like, until you actually, like, impede the processes. Like, you have to actually stop the military industrial complex from happening, or I don't know. I mean, it's just like they've left us very little power, you know?
Right.
So like that's the stuff we ask all the time, like how? You know, and we see very like you know, people that mean well and are trying incredibly hard to do those things. And even they're like, yeah, I don't know. We'll try, you know. So who knows, man? When anyone figures out what we should be doing, let me know. You know. So, but anyway, Kieran Pine, political whores, Collin, could be our Twitter profile. You know. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Look, I'm gonna say this all the time until I'm blue in the face.
Yeah.
Like, treat politicians like the oppressors that they are.
Yeah.
They're all in it. Even the ones you like.
Yep.
Like,
looking at you people standing Thomas Massey like he's fucking different. Like he ain't.
Right. And it's like, you give credit to people like Margie, and she's only saying the shit because she's, again, like self-preserving herself.
Positioning for best advantage.
Like, she's just trying to position herself for re-election, just saying the right shit for her constituents so that she'll be re-elected. That's all it is. She's not, it's not that she's having a change of heart. She's just saying the shit that she needs to say in order to get re-elected. She doesn't give a fuck. But I see people giving, like, I get why people give her praise, but like, low bar. Like,
real
she
fucking
still
low bar.
Sucks.
People forgot what, you
like,
know what it
she
is,
still
Collin?
sucks.
People forgot what normal pandering politicians look like. They're so used to politicians that just blatantly are fucking dog shit. They forget what like a glad-handing, smile, kiss the baby, and lie to you politician look like. You know? Like that's... There's a lot of those around who are willing to pander. Worse, there's people that like Massey, like MTG, like whatever, who see the tea leaves and go, it doesn't hurt me to like be on the right position here. You know, meanwhile, they fucking vote for all the same shit. They do all the same other shit. They're still funded by the same fuckers. They're all pawns in the political system. It's all kabuki theater. And until people figure that shit out, like, it's like the best things to do is attack their real leaders. Honestly, like, go after the Palantirs and whatever. I don't mean physically, but I mean their wallets. You know, like.
Vicky has said something in the chat. We should maybe address. She said that Eric T. Red has 11 policies demands.
Yeah, they're the same that like
you want to share. You want to share our
been on talked about those demands.
Yeah, we
demands are nice.
So Vicky, I'm not sure if Savvy still has that stream that we did with Eric.
Yeah,
and her on this. We probably did it like maybe 2 years ago. Look, I'm all for writing them down,
right?
But Eric's, and I'll say it here, the issue that we had with Eric was, I don't believe in revolution being violent. And it's like...
Yeah, nothing else has done that.
Like, right, like, then you haven't read your history. Like, not to say we're looking for blood spilled on the streets here.
And my thing is that
it's still the idea
it had
of
been done already. You know, like TYT had those same demands practically and sent them to people, had them sign it. Like, you know, that was a while ago, you know?
Right. I remember
no offense to
asked
Eric.
Elizabeth Warren about something. Maybe in Medicare for all.
And it's all shit that on paper, they'd be like, yeah, sure. And then they do nothing about it. So I don't know how you hold them accountable.
And they will still tell you to vote for them.
Yeah, it was a while ago,
yeah,
Vicky.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure if Savvy has it on her channel, but
probably on Eric's channel if you go back.
Probably on Eric's channel more than likely. But yeah, like we talked about this with him.
Yeah.
You know, they're fine, but like, you know, but having a list without the organization or,
Yeah.
you know, but what are you willing to give up in order to ensure that it will get done? Like, that's my main thing
Right.
in regards to overwrite these lists.
And I think
Like,
demanding anything
that
of
gonna-
politicians at this point is a like fool's errand. Yeah. Well, let's get to our next one. So if you're in the UK, I would be paying attention because this is, I think, definitely going to pertain to you in the foreseeable future, especially if you're like many of their audience. So I pulled this from Craig Murray, right? Who writes about 36-minute trials and no jury, right? So apparently 2,000 upstanding citizens, most of them elderly and many infirm, hustled through this mass injustice process will be a defining moment in the UK's headlong slide into fascism. So this is about supporting Palestine action, right? I don't know if you remember the protests in the UK not that long ago about how people were in support of them, and they were getting charged with terrorism and whatnot. So those charged with terrorism for supporting Palestine action will have no jury in trials limited to 36 minutes each, with prison sentences up to 6 months. These are the plans for Starmer courts for mass trials of anti-genocide protesters. These plans are devised by Justice Michael Snow. He is the epitome of judicial prejudice. When Julian Assange appeared before Snow in his first hearing after being dragged from the embassy, Snow called Assange a narcissist, even though Assange had nothing but to confirm his name and no evidence had been led. Snow has now decreed that these 2,000 people charged under Section 13 of the Terrorism Act with supporting Palestine action will be tried in batches of 5 at the rate of 10 people a day, giving 36 court minutes for each defendant. This is a farce, a spectacle of mass show trial. The 36 minutes includes both prosecution and defense cases and cross-examination. At a scheduled hearing this week, one of the accused, 72-year-old Deborah Wild, objected that these trials would be far too short to present a proper defense. Snow snapped back, "I'm satisfied that the time is sufficient. I am not going to give more time. Your only remedy is the High Court." As I am sure Snow realizes, ordinary people cannot afford to go to the High Court. The worrying thing is that the trials will be held before judges, including the appalling Snow, with no jury. Here is the relevant part of Section 13 of the Terrorism Act. So we've actually talked about this before in regards to the UK Terrorism Act, particularly in regards to Phantom Parrot. I highly suggest you UK listeners go and actually look at Phantom Parrot, one of the segments on our channel. But person in a public place commits an offense if he A, wears an item of clothing, or B, wears, carries, or displays an article in such a way or in such circumstances as to arouse reasonable suspicion that he is a member or supporter of a prescribed organization. Okay? A person commits an offense if the person publishes an image of A, an item of clothing, or any other article in such a way or in such circumstances as to arouse reasonable suspicion that the person is a member or supporter in a prescribed organization. So, and a person guilty of an offense under this section shall be liable on summary conviction to A, imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months, a fine not exceeding level 5 on the standard scale, or both. Okay? So, perhaps the most astonishing thing about this draconian legislation is that arousing suspicion is actually the offense. It does not matter if the suspicion turns out to be well-grounded or not. The suspicion could be totally wrong, but if you are aroused to suspicion on reasonable grounds in a policeman's head, you are guilty. So it is an offense of strict liability. Your intent is not considered. You may have been considered to stop a genocide. You may have been most concerned to stop a genocide or oppose the destruction of free speech. Judge Snow and his ilk will not care. They only want to know if some half-educated cop suspected you of supporting a terrorist organization. There's no jury to whom you can explain your actions. and which would be highly likely to sympathize. I have seen it as an offense of strict liability, likened to possession of Class A drugs, but actually it isn't. The correct analogy would be a crime where the offense was arousing a suspicion you possessed Class A drugs, whether you actually had any or not. The experience of watching 2,000 citizens, most of them elderly and many of them infirm, slaughterhouse queue of mass justice and into prison with little opportunity to defend themselves will be a defining moment in UK's headlong slide into fascism, the best available way to fight this ridiculously unjust process, which has been directly opposed by UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk, by Amnesty International, and by Liberty, is through the legal challenge to an absurd and oppressive law. This is being done in both England and Scotland, which are separate jurisdictions. I am the petitioner in the Scottish case, says Craig Murray. These are precedents for different decisions in the different jurisdictions. The Scottish courts found former Prime Minister Boris Johnson's prorogation of Parliament illegal. The English courts legal. Ultimately, the Supreme Court decided in favor of the Scottish courts. It is also possible that Palestine action should simply operate legally in one jurisdiction and not the other. The law is frequently different in the two countries. The rationale of those legal case is explained here. Thoughts, Care Bear? What do you got?
This is a tactic to scare people. That's really all it is.
For sure.
You know, just the idea of having a 36 minutes? Like, that just seems so...
It seems this is like a fucking Monty Python sketch practice. This is like literally out of Pink Floyd's The Wall. You know, I can see the magistrate in the wig being evil and corrupt in the scene. Like, it's already... They've been through this already in, fictional, dystopian Europe. So...
Right.
Yeah, I mean...
It's a tactic to scare people so that they don't protest. Because it's the idea of if you do things that we don't like, then you're not even gonna have the honor, really, of having a trial, of actual trial, where people are able to vet the evidence against you in terms of the crime that you're committing, and just throw you in jail. That's
UK80 in the
they're
chat.
Just looking.
I am one of the 2,000 arrested for S13. Indy broke my exclusive regarding PayPal, closing the accounts of those charged so far at Witchwick Sam. So, yeah, definitely remember that. We've been covering... correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Palestine Action exists as an organization anymore. They shut it down. So I don't know how if you wear any of their defunct clothing that you're a member of that organization regardless. The organization doesn't fucking exist. So just for that reason, they rebranded and renamed and offshooted and whatever, just for that reason. So I don't know what the deal is, but we'll see. We'll keep an eye on this story for sure, because I think with everything happening, this kind of stuff gets the protests get a ton of eyeballs and coverage, but then the aftermath of it rarely does. So we'll keep an eye on that for sure. But yeah, stay safe out there, UK. It's looking dangerous for you guys out there, especially during protests. So, be on your P's and Q's. Anyway, talking about this sort of stuff is definitely why YouTube's decided to demonetize us with no jury in a 36-minute trial. So you can scan that QR code and go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network and help us out. Send us a few dollary dues. We appreciate it. But if you can't, just like and subscribe, share this video. Allegedly, if you do that, YouTube likes us then. So share this with your like-minded friends and leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Jacqueline in chat, does that mean a person wearing a keffiyeh could be sentenced to 6 months in prison? Well, you know, if it's what was the term? Like, you know, if you arouse suspicion, you know,
right,
that fucking, you're gonna get the billy stick upside the head if you do that. You know, get thrown into a paddy wagon and taken to the station. So who knows, dude? Like, it's scary over there with what Europe's doing too. You know, we think of it as better than here sometimes, but they definitely got their problems.
A lot of ways, yeah, and I would argue in some ways it's worse.
Yeah. Yes, sir. All right. Let me check over here. Wild Rose, Ghost Starred over on the Rumble, holding it down. Appreciate y'all. Cool. So, all right, you ready for our next one? I'm ready.
Yeah. Let's talk about Bad Bunny.
Cool.
So, not to say I was intrigued by, well, the hype / controversy around him didn't really necessarily interest me. It was just like, it was on par for the course in terms of Bad Bunny plays at Super Bowl. He is Latino. He generally he's refusing to speak English. So MAGA had an issue with that. So just the usual cultural war politics, I would argue, just around the Super Bowl anyway, I wasn't necessarily interested in. But then I think I kind of came upon this story on Instagram, not the article, but the idea of him essentially kind of being a voice of the resistance in Puerto Rico. So that kind of perked my interest a little bit more, because we've heard of this type of stance in music before.
Yeah.
And, you know, and like, I know, as I said earlier, like a lot of my close friends in DC are Latino. So obviously, I know of Bad Bunny. I hear his music at least once a week.
Yeah.
Don't know a word of it because I don't speak Spanish, but like,
yeah,
it sounds fine to me.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
pick up a
don't have
couple
issues
here and
with
there.
the man, whatever.
You know?
But it got me a little intrigued. So wanted to do two things to kind of beat the algorithm a little bit. You know, like kind of mention the story. He's kind of trending right now. But I think we're gonna try to kind of dig into this a little bit deeper in terms of his music, and is it really truly the voice of the resistance in terms of what I've been hearing people online saying about him. So we're gonna dive into it a little bit more. So don't think we've used this publication before, LA Taco. But this is where at least we're gonna kind of pull a lot of the main ideas from, but then we're gonna go into a little bit more into another article that I'll read after this. And we've talked about, I think you and I have collectively talked about Puerto Rico in the past in terms of its colonial history, but I don't think anything more recently in terms of the current issues. I think people think of Hurricane Maria, probably a more recent zeitgeist in political news, and especially with Trump, how he just like ignored Puerto Rico until he. Oh.
Yeah, you're catching up. It'll be all right.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. So yeah, like obviously, I think when people think of Puerto Rico, I think now Hurricane Maria and how Trump basically avoided Puerto Rico until he had to, and then he was throwing the paper towels at people, which people had a fit over. But there are other issues that stem from within the island that I think a lot of people may not necessarily know. I think we've kind of talked about them a little bit, but I think that definitely plays a part into the significance of who Bad Bunny is and how he's being perceived as a voice of the resistance, and how, in my mind, that I don't think that's a very accurate moniker for him, at least. So we'll get into that, though. So this article is written by, and I'm going to butcher all these Spanish names, so forgive me. But
Gabriel
Buena. No, it's not Nya, but
yeah, definitely not Nya.
Buena and Enrico M. Buena, I guess.
I forget exactly
where they write.
My Puerto Ricanos, I think L's are like B's, but could be wrong in this particular case. Might not be Puerto Ricanos, but sure. Enrique and Gabriel.
Right. They title Bad Bunny's Middle Finger to White Assimilation by singing entirely in Spanish and refusing to apologize. Bad Bunny is telling millions of Americans to stop sitting on the sidelines as he takes the biggest stage in the world at next year's Super Bowl. So Gabriel and Enrique write, by now, most of us have heard that Bad Bunny will perform at the Super Bowl in February 2026. The game always commands national attention, but this time it's sending MAGA-lania into a meltdown, the mythical place where folks wave flags, eat wings and nachos, and rage about their culture being under attack. The outrage is almost comical. Marjorie Taylor Greene now wants to make English the official language, a tired, punitive gesture meant to silence brown communities. We've heard that tune before, and it's still off-key. But the real question is, why did the NFL choose Bad Bunny? It's not because they suddenly care about Latinos. They don't care about our culture, language, or history. What they do understand is demographics and money. The U.S. is well on its way to becoming a minority-majority nation, and Latinos are driving that shift. Catching up, I guess. No matter how many of us that ICE and MAGA want to deport, we are still here. Our community now generates more than $4 trillion annually in GDP. That's power, and is exactly what fuels the MAGA panic, anger, and meltdown. For over a century, assimilationists have pushed one vision of America: English-speaking, white, and Western European. WASP. Yep. In other words, everyone else was expected to abandon their language and heritage and feel grateful just to belong. Some of us have even bought into this, but this fantasy was always false. Multiculturalism has been America's reality since before its founding. Spanish, for instance, was spoken here long before the American Constitution was written. English only and white cultural supremacy were forced ideas, never natural ones. Yes, English matters. It's the current common language of law, commerce, and literature, but it's not the only one. And speaking Spanish is as American as pan dulce. It's also constitutionally protected. Which brings us back to Bad Bunny. Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio is 100% American, bilingual, bicultural, and unapologetically Puerto Rican. Puerto Rico became a U.S. colony in 1898 after the Spanish-American War. Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens, even those on the island can't vote for president. Let that sink in. Across all Latino communities, Chicanos, Mexicans, Dominicans, Cubans, Central and South Americans, few things unite us like language. A 2023 Pew Research study found that 65% of Latinos say it's very important that future generations speak Spanish. Only 5% says it's not important at all. So when Bad Bunny takes the stage, he's not performing. He's not just performing. He's also representing cultural pride and defiance, the right to exist in Spanish and as a Latino on the biggest stage in the world. Bad Bunny's presence challenges U.S. policies on immigration, poverty in Puerto Rico, and the colonial mindset that keeps Latinos in their place. He might even be challenging America's continued colonial rule in Puerto Rico. Whoops. Did I skip?
I don't think so. I think you're good.
Okay.
This one. There you go.
Oh, next one. Yeah. Something he's been singing about since 2016 when he broke into the business is with his song Soy Peor. Commenting on social issues in Puerto Rico. He hasn't stopped since. Just listen to his latest album, Nadie sabe lo que va
Nadie sabe la que va a pasar mañana. Don't worry, I got you, bro. Floridian's here, dude. We got this shit.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. A 17-track collection that pays tribute to Puerto Rico and included songs like Lo que le pasa a Hawaii.
Yeah.
Warning about gentrification and over-tourism in his homeland and urging folks to hold on to the Puerto Rican flag. So we'll talk more about that in a bit. By singing entirely Spanish and refusing to apologize, he's telling millions of us to stop sitting on the sidelines. His concerts bring both pride and revenue to Puerto Rico. His art speaks to communities terrorized by ICE and ignoring the cowardly politicians. He's pushing boundaries around gender, language, and sovereignty, topics many still fear to say out loud. For some, seeing a brown man speaking Spanish and, God forbid, wear a dress is unbearable. For others, it's liberation. Bad Bunny might just be this generation's Benito Juarez, a reformer wielding art instead of law, rhythm instead of decrees. Juarez liberated a nation. Bad Bunny just might be the catalyst for liberating a people. Maybe he's not just only liberating Puerto Ricans. And the best part, whoops.
No, I think that was an old one.
Next slide. Next slide.
There it goes.
Yeah.
We're just going back.
And the best part, he speaks perfect English. In fact, his mother taught English.
Yeah.
He just chooses not to bow to it. He chooses Spanish as a message of resistance. He chooses Puerto Rico. He chooses to love his people loudly, defiantly, and in his own language. That's not ingratitude. It's freedom set to a reggaeton beat. Now that's a message anyone can understand. So when Mr. Bunny challenges Americans to learn Spanish in the next 4 months, that's what he said on SNL. So that's kind of one of the things that MAGA got crazy about.
Upset about.
Let's take him up on the challenge. So I have thoughts on this, and I'll get into that later. But so far, you're somewhat more well-versed in Puerto Rican culture than me, kind of, I guess.
Yep.
Any thoughts on this? Or any?
I mean, he's just another artist for the most part. I mean, like most Puerto Rican artists, they represent. You kind of have to, right? You're going to throw lyrics are going to be referencing Taino and Boricua and like all that shit. You're going to fucking throw down. You're going to be put the timbales on and whatever. Like it's part of it. Like, especially because it's such a small subsect of Spanish culture as well, right? Like, especially when you go from the island to New York, you have that very like Pocolo, like Southside generation shit going on. That's a big part of that like it's such a big part of American culture without realizing it. Like, of course, there's going to be someone that's like pushing those boundaries. I mean, the dude's a powerhouse as far as like, he's like what? Like third globally, one of the best artists, like promotionally.
Yeah.
Like he's killing it.
I saw that in your chat. Like someone,
it's like him,
I think Sean was saying that. Like
him, I know that like the Brazilian cats over there are also doing extremely well globally. Like people are just digging like the Afro Latin beats, which I can't blame them for. Pretty good stuff rhythmically. So I find it like. I mean, I find it interesting. Of course, all the like there's going to be narratives around it because, dudes, you don't make it to the Super Bowl without having capitulated to capitalism to some degree. So
now, see, here's the. So I'll just say this. So in my mind, here's the hypocrisy here, because conservatives are acting like, oh, people are not going to listen to all this and all that. Then explain K-pop then, because it's not just liberals who are listening to K-pop. Like the biggest movie right now is K-pop Demon Hunters right now. That is not just liberal kids and adults watching that shit.
No.
That's conservatives too.
Well, look,
and I'm sure, like, if it were like BTS or Blackpink who are performing at the Super Bowl,
they'd be just as upset.
Like,
they'd be just as upset.
Maybe. Well, I'm talking more about the old farts, not necessarily like the younger people.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not necessarily going to have a problem with this. And even with Bad Bunny, it's not even like I don't think the younger they may not know who he is, but I don't think they're going to be as concerned about Bad Bunny compared to like the old farts who are like, oh my god, like we don't know what he's going to say.
Compare that to like last couple of years, you know, they've had like Dr. Dre or whatever. They got just as upset as like Kendrick and them doing it and whatever. It's just like standard culture war like narrative, honestly. You know, I think what it is though is that like the youth, especially regardless of like demographics, are such internationally plugged in. You know, they're playing video games with people in like Venezuela. They're like, you know, they're doing these things.
I mean, case in point, anime. Like you have conservative. Everyone likes anime. So again, it's not just like conservatives. It's not liberal people that is just watching like, and it's not even niche anymore. It's like we are so far more connected now, especially given social media, that like I remember like watching MTV like in the 90s, like there was like the VMAs, like there was like a demographic where there was like best international artists like from different places. And most of those people, it was like, who? Like, because it was so hard back then to even hear their music, much less know who they were, given to how isolated we were from each other. Maybe at best Europe, you might have heard some of that music, but only if it was popular here. Now, with social media and the internet, it's like you can hear anybody anywhere and be into them and like know who they are. And like, and again, given the rise of K-pop, anime, like Afrobeats is kind of a thing, kind of somewhat like reggaeton, especially in the early aughts. I think it also kind of shows how I think it also kind of shows like how I think people, especially in music, are just kind of getting bored with the same pop. Like even in the States, like the same beats all the freaking time. Like people just want to hear something.
Throw some clave in there.
I think just,
you know?
Right. So I think that the exposure is helping people just be more connected culturally, especially if you music, especially if you don't necessarily speak the language, you can still bump and twerk to it. Like, you know, so I think it's, so I do appreciate that about Bad Bunny and what he represents, you know, especially within my Latino friends, like when they hear him, a lot of them like are just really
get the fuck get on the dance floor. Let's fucking right.
So, you know, but that being said, let's get into the next article. This is from the Latin Times. This is written by Salome Bayer Velez, who questions Bad Bunny, a voice of Puerto Rican resistance. Benito is reminding newer generations of who they are and where they come from, a scholar told the Latin Times when analyzing the significance of Deadbeats Más Fotos. So that's his most recent album that he had out this year.
You got it. Go one more.
So
there you go.
There you go. All right. So she writes, Debbie Tira Más Fotos or I Should Have Taken More Photos, the latest album by Puerto Rican artist Bad Bunny, climbed to #1 on Billboard's 200 albums chart in only 5 days and has maintained that position for 4 consecutive weeks. It is the second of the reggaeton artist albums to achieve this feat, this time being out artists like SZA, Kendrick Lamar, and Taylor Swift. During its first week, the album garnered over 263 million on-demand official streams and earned 203,500 equivalent album units in the United States alone, as reported by Rolling Stone. That's why he's playing Super Bowl.
Yeah, he's popular.
Like,
it's very
popular.
easy. You know?
Move it. There you
There
go.
it goes.
This achievement is all the more impressive when considering that the artist's discography is solely sung in Spanish. In fact, Bad Bunny's El Ultimito Tour del Mundo in 2020 became Billboard's first all-Spanish language album to hit #1 on Billboard's 200 history. When asked by the New York Times if he was worried about listeners not understanding his music, he said, "I don't care."
Yeah, it's still music.
Comprising a
Shut the
track
fuck up and dance.
Right.
It'll be fine. Like,
right.
you know.
Comprising a track list of 17 songs, Debí Tiras Más Fotos merges from the well-known reggaeton beats in which Bad Bunny started his career with salsa and peña, reflecting the artist's Puerto Rican roots. It also features other Boricua artists like Rhinal, Chuy, Omar Coors, and Los Paños de la Cresta, a band dedicated to keeping the folk Afro-Boricua plena genre alive. So I am sorry for butchering.
You did it. You got all of it. You were good.
Okay.
Boricua is the only one you got, but
beyond
that's,
celebrating,
you know, like,
beyond celebrating Puerto Rican culture, the album is also one of resistance and political activism. Lo que los pasó a Hawaii, What Happened to Hawaii track, Bad Bunny warns Boricuas by comparing Puerto Rico's struggle with neo-imperialism and gentrification with Hawaii's own.
Right.
They want to take the river and the beach. They want to take my neighborhood and for grandma to leave. Don't let go of the flag. Don't forget the LOI.
Yeah.
Don't let them do what they did to Hawaii, the artist sings. All right. Puerto Rico, a Spanish colony since the late 15th century, was acquired by the United States following the 1898 Spanish-American and establishing as an incorporated U.S. territory. The U.S. Constitution allows for the unequal treatment of its territories compared to states, as long as there is a rational basis for such a difference. As scholar Samantha Rivera Joseph points out, the dichotomy of being both American citizens and colonial subjects has situated Puerto Ricans in a political purgatory that makes them particularly vulnerable to exploitation of their land and resources in the United States.
Yep. Go.
Do you mind moving it for me?
I got it. Yeah.
Thank you. In spite of being U.S. citizens, Puerto Ricans do not have full representation in Congress. Those who live on the island can't vote in federal elections, and their local policies and legislations are superseded by federal mandates. Puerto Ricans voted for the island's independence first in 1914, a call that was ignored but met with granting Boricuas U.S. citizenship. In the 1930s, however, a strong independence movement emerged, led by Harvard-educated lawyer Pedro Albizu Campos. This movement was faced with retaliation, such as the killing of 19 Nationalist Party members led by U.S.-led police in the southern city of Ponce, known as the Ponce Massacre, and the bombing of the central Jayuya and Hurtado towns.
Yep.
It was now recognized as the first time that the U.S. bombed its own citizens. Today, independence is unpopular amongst Puerto Ricans. A 2024 poll conducted by the local paper El Nuevo Dia found that only 90% of Boricuas support independence. The island, however, has voted for statehood several times, as per the Puerto Rico Statehood Council, which is working to build a national movement in support of equal rights through Puerto Rican statehood. Speaking with the Land Times, however, Dr. Itiza Haddad Nunez, Puerto Rican-born adjunct professor at Southern New Hampshire University and founder of the Friendly Law NGO, explained that the American influence extends beyond politics. The media sold Puerto Ricans an idea of who we should be instead of who we are, so we will make an effort to search for those American traits that were blasted in our faces as desirable. It created a mindset, especially on little kids, of what we should look like, what we're meant to be, so it became easier to erase our history from the inside, Dr. Haddad Nunez said. Puerto Ricans have forgotten their history, and although they have maintained their identity, it has become easier to assimilate to American standards, Dr. Haddad Nunez argues. Our language was banned, our flag was banned, but we, as rebellious as we were, kept showing it and speaking Spanish, the scholar recalls. The U.S. did ban both the Spanish language and the Puerto Rican flag with the 1948 gag law, which criminalized expressive acts of Puerto Rican independence. Efforts to invalidate the law under the First Amendment were unsuccessful until 1957. They killed people here for showing the flag, which is why I now bring it with me wherever I go. Bad Bunny sings on his newest album's 17th track, La Mudanza, The Move. The scholar attributes the current rejection of many Boricuas to questions of statehood or independence to feel distilled by the U.S. in the island through such actions. Remember, rejection comes from fear. They'd rather have the comfort of the limbo that we have than nothing at all because fear of the unknown is too much, she explained. Bad Bunny, however, is rescuing those aspects of history that many have forgotten and of which have prompted an assimilation into U.S. culture, Dr. Haddad Nunez explained. Benito is reminding newer generations of who they are and where they come from, she said. On his album, Benito speaks of his fellow countrymen being displaced to mainland U.S. due to corruption within the island, and of the Boricua diaspora in New York's Bronx borough specifically.
Yep.
As per the Department of Economic Development and Commerce, 4,500 individuals and businesses relocated from Puerto Rico to the mainland between 2012 to 2019, a number that has only continued to rise. This increasing wave of outward migration coincides with the 2012 tax exemption decree passed by the Legislative Assembly of Puerto Rico to attract and develop key industries from manufacturing and film to hospitality. The 2019 Law 60, similarly created by the Office of Incentives for Business in Puerto Rico, tasked with administering the tax incentives. This means that foreign investors to Puerto Rico benefit from a forward income tax rate on eligible income, 100% tax exemption on capital gains from eligible investments, and 75% exemption from property for initial 15 years. Law 60 has been instrumental in attracting foreign business and entrepreneurs, which benefit from its incentives to establish their operations on the island. This has resulted in the creation of close to 28,000 jobs, strengthening key sectors such as advancing manufacturing and technology, explained Ella Warder-Niez, CEO of Invest Puerto Rico, a nonprofit that promotes business and capital investment on the island, in conversation with Land Times. Warder-Niez also stressed that through tax incentives and a general promotion of direct foreign investment, Puerto Rico has sought to create well-paying jobs, a diversification of the economy, and access to technology and innovation. However, a side effect of this capital injection and the appealing tropical island to which investors can move to while enjoying tax breaks is gentrification.
Yep.
You probably could have guessed that just given all of that.
Yep.
Affordable housing is one of the biggest issues on the island right now. Even Puerto Ricans in the diaspora are wanting to come back and buy property to create some generational wealth, but they mention how difficult it is for them to be allowed to invest. They say how it's not until they have a colleague or friend with a very American name who can pass for them, and suddenly everything is expedited, Dr. Haddad Nunez explained. Journalist Bianca Gualo, who previously collaborated with Bad Bunny in the music video for El
Apagón.
Apagón, the blackout, released a short film exploring this issue. In it, Raul Santiago Bartolome, an assistant professor at the University of Puerto Rico, explained that gentrification does not happen throughout the island, but rather in certain cities. If you live in places where foreign investment is evident, in the future you will probably have to move because prices will go up so much that you will not be able to afford life in these towns. This also means that part of the labor force that works in these places will also have to move farther and farther away as time goes on, Santiago Bartolome stated. However, some, however, stress that sustainable foreign investment is not only possible, but rather their responsibility under current incentives. We understand that economic development must be inclusive and sustainable. That's why we work to ensure the local workforce has access to training, well-paying jobs, and a better quality of life. We also advocate for effective regulation of economic incentives, ensuring that they benefit those who comply with legal requirements and contribute to both economic and social interests, Roganiev stated. Tebi Tira Mas Fotos is currently charging in 17 Latin American countries, including Colombia, Venezuela, Argentina, Costa Rica, and Nicaragua, and its lead song placed third on Billboard's Global 200 song rank. Its influence, however, is centered on his home in Puerto Rico. Bad Bunny's influence is not limited to his music, but also extends to his capacity for economical impact. His 30 show resonance in the Coliseo de Puerto Rico, titled I Don't Want to Leave Here, will have an estimated impact of $200 million USD, Wogan noted. The resonance in El Choli, recognized as being reggaeton's stomping ground, is being set to begin on July 11th and ended on September 14, 2025. It is now completely sold out, although its tickets went from $544 to $907 US. Jesus.
Fucking, that's a Taylor Swift ticket right there. You know?
That's a Beyonce ticket also right there. Again, I have thoughts. And included a 2-night stay at one of the event's hotel. Well, I guess if you're including hotel stay.
Yeah.
Okay, but
yeah, it's a bit better, but still tough for people to pay that. You know?
Right.
Like if you're local, what's the price? If you don't need to stay at the hotel, you know?
Right.
Like
yeah, it almost seems to kind of benefit the very thing that seemingly Bad Bunny is fighting against in his music or talking about in his music. It's like, yeah, you can talk about the gentrification all you want, but your tickets are selling for I'm going to say like for a free night stay, give or take, you know, plus a flight to Puerto Rico, which again, who's that going to benefit? It's not necessarily going to benefit the people on the island per se. That's going to benefit us who have the means to go.
Right.
Not even us needing right now, given that the economy is shit in the US too. So again, it's just people with means. And I said this to you, like, I think probably Monday. Like, people are screaming, you know, like, well, you know, Bad Bunny has said that he didn't want to play here because he was concerned about ICE as concerts. And again, for the Super Bowl, and basically, I think Christy Nome was like, "Oh, we're gonna have ICE there," but who going to the Super Bowl though?
Yeah,
like not regular people, not the people that I'm sure Bad Bunny is talking about in his music. It's gonna be the rich white people mostly, and the people with means who will be able to go. Like you're going to arrest rich white, you're gonna arrest rich people. I mean, they probably might, but like. You want that smoke to arrest people with means because you think that they are, you know, of higher melanin than you. Like, okay, go off. But,
crazy.
Yeah. But anyway, oops. Let me go back. Creative industries, as per an Invest Puerto Rico study, generate $8.7 billion USD every year and employ over 87,000 people. Events led by artists like Benito capitalize opportunities, strengthen Puerto Rico's image as a competitive and dynamic business destination. Yeah, again, for people who can afford it. Beyond the economy, however, Dr. Haddad Nunez points out that Bad Bunny's success abroad might not reflect Boricua's sentiment toward him. Puerto Ricans are our own worst enemy. First, they hated Bad Bunny because of his savage slang he used, but now they have a political reason to hate him more than a moral one, she explained. Regardless, the power in voicing some Boricua's frustrations remain deeply emotional for the scholar. He's selling a narrative, he's creating conversations, and I'm just thankful that what we academics have been trying to raise the alarms about for so long, he's also using his platform to put out there. I believe in
joyful activism.
What does that mean? Like, what is that? Like, just that phrase alone.
I call myself a joyful warrior.
Oh, you had that. I wasn't even thinking of that. Like,
yep.
Funny enough, you mentioned Kamala because she's going to appear in a second.
Oh no!
But anyway,
not that lady.
I believe in joyful activism, and that's what he's doing. Haddad Nunez exclaimed, holding back. Okay, so
yeah.
Then again, she's an academic, so
it's all the feels.
I think it's kind of on par for the court. That's all the feels. But so I happen to find this because they're talking about Bad Bunny as if he's the voice of the resistance. And I just happen to find this on Twitter. He doesn't post much on social media, so I think he posts mostly to his stories. But I happen to find that, you know, this is a tweet. Did I not put in the tweet itself?
No, you did. This one right here.
Oh, yeah. So this is someone posted where, translated from Spanish, Bad Bunny backs Kamala Harris and shares her reel against Donald Trump. So, you know, you could play this, but
there's so much at stake in this election for Puerto Rican voters and for Puerto Rico. And this election is not just a choice between Donald Trump and me. It is a choice between two very different visions for our nation. I will never forget what Donald Trump did and what he did not do when Puerto Rico needed a caring and a competent leader. He abandoned the island, tried to block aid after back-to-back devastating hurricanes, and offered nothing more than paper towels and insults. I will never forget what Donald Trump did and what he did not do when Puerto Rico needed a caring and a competent leader. He abandoned the island, tried to block aid after back-to-back devastating hurricanes, and offered nothing more than paper towels and insults. I will never forget what Donald Trump did.
For? Why?
This is the most election of our lifetime.
Yeah.
Right. So let me pull up this next tweet.
Yeah, I got you.
And then I have thoughts. So first tweet below, at Jasmine SW Free. Oh, kind of like that name. She said, and people will swear they get Bad Bunny's message, but not Beyonce's. So at Jazzy V responded, Bad Bunny using the Puerto Rican flag as a symbol of resistance and anti-colonialism, while Beyonce seeks to reclaim a flag that's been a symbol of colonialism all over the globe, including Puerto Rico. Not hard to see why one sticks and the other doesn't. That would make sense if Bad Bunny, like, here's my problem. You can't say you're resisting, obviously, against Donald Trump, but still endorse or support the left the Blue Party, rather, when what have they done for your island? Like, we just mentioned about gentrification, like, that is bringing a lot of Puerto Ricans here. And, like, and this is something that MAGA is not going to talk about. And this is something that I kind of mentioned ad nauseum on this show is you're having issues with immigrants coming here. Why? Why are they coming? And again, given the article, and again, I know you've kind of talked about this, and we've talked about Puerto Rico collectively on the show over the past few years, but it's similar things that we similar in the States. Like corporations are looking for a cheap place to build business and to expand their wealth. Puerto Rico, since it's right here, great place to do that. So yeah, they're making money with all the tax incentives that they get to the detriment of the people who are living there that can't even afford to live there, that they're now coming here. And we have an issue with them coming here. So look, I get the hype around Bad Bunny, but I have trouble of people calling him the voice of the resistance when he's not resisting the whole. If you're going to resist the government, resist all of it.
Yeah.
You can't just obviously go after Trump, given what he said about shithole countries, which I'm sure included Puerto Rico, but also not call out the Democratic Party. And look, you can fill in the blank, but again, Gaza and all that stuff aside, what have the Democrats done towards Puerto Rico? Have they given you statehood? Are they even giving you independence? Are they doing anything
would be
in terms of
my choice?
Right.
But
I'm saying right, but at minimum statehood. And I'm only saying that because there have been talks about DC becoming a state.
Yeah.
So like Biden wasn't doing shit about that. What has Kamala said towards having Puerto Rico being a state? Like, as far as I know, nothing. So
this reminds me of
just
like the whole Lin-Manuel Miranda thing when he was becoming popular from Hamilton, right?
Hamilton, yeah.
Yeah, where he's Puerto Ricanos as well, and he talked about back then, the pharmaceutical companies came in, completely fucked over the island. He was talking about that shit then. I remember seeing segments about it, and like they go, "Oh, no, we hear you. We'll do something." And it's like the same thing I think is happening with like Bad Bunny. Is like he has this giant platform and popularity and money, and the things he's talking about, they go, "Oh no, we hear you. We're listening," and then they're really just doing it because he's popular, like, and they end up selling you out because of it. Like you end up going along with that shit because you go, "Hey, see, look, they're listening," and in reality, they're not. So
right.
But
I mean, I did a little research because I knew about Bad Bunny's residency. I thought he was done, but like apparently no, he's going on a world tour. Like I think probably starting now within the next month or so, but next year he's gonna be in Latin America, in Europe, and Australia. And what I'm seeing is that I was kind of curious. So like I looked up where he's performing. He's going to be in London next June. Now tickets for his show, at least in his London show, for what I saw right now, are about $200. Fine, but having to pay for airfare, having to pay for hotel, having to pay for that cost that's gonna be very easily at least $2,000 just to see Bad Bunny perform abroad. And the idea is like, who is going to afford being able to go?
Yeah.
And we had this conversation over the weekend when I shared that I wanted to do this story. this is the same tactic that Kendrick Lamar did this year. Like, he played at the Super Bowl. He got a lot of controversy given the visuals, but he used that as promotion for his tour, which also, from what I understand, was also very expensive. So at the end of the day, Bad Bunny can talk about the resistance and like all these themes as far as gentrification all he wants. He has a right to do that. And if he's inspiring Puerto Ricans to think in terms of their history, great. But we cannot lie that this is all in the vein of activism. This is all in the vein of using the aesthetics like Beyonce is prone to do,
right,
to sell records. So he's playing into the capitalist game like Taylor Swift, Beyonce, and every other major position before him, because at the end of the day, is he using his wealth? How's he using his wealth to better the lives of Puerto Ricans? Like, in terms of really moving policy, like to better the lives of his, of his people. Like, so yeah, it's one thing to talk about it and rap about it. Cool. But like, put your money where your mouth is, sir. And then as an extension of that, like, how are you going to connect it to other issues that are of other people worldwide? Like, again, haven't heard his stance in terms of the genocide, notwithstanding. Has he mentioned anything in regards to what's happening in Latin America? And I'm sure he has, obviously.
And will be,
but
probably.
Again, I don't know. Like, I don't watch
I
Bad
don't know
Bunny
what
in
he's
that
using
regard. But
his extreme wealth for either, but like, Bendito, if you want to come on, I'll make fucking tostones y gandules, y mofongo. Like, we have a good time, dude. I'll bring out the coquito. I am not playing with this shit. All right? Like, I am very much down for that, but we'll figure out what you can do for your people together, but I doubt it. I doubt you'd be coming on, But anyway.
Right. But yeah, I'm just kind of like, it's, again, the aesthetics of politics and activism in terms of selling music. And yeah, it's great to have those conversations, but how are those conversations affecting change? And if he's not necessarily doing that, and again, just the idea of joyful activism to me, it's just kind of like almost a misnomer. I do not feel joy in the activism that I do.
No.
I wish I did, but most of the time I
that's
don't. You
the
see me,
kumbaya
anything
shit
I get.
Every liberal arts degree
like,
fucking loves to hear about,
Right.
Like,
If it's meant just to give you the warm and fuzzies, like,
that
no,
ain't
that's
shit.
not what it's meant to be. Like, and I don't think, to be fair, that's not what he intends for his music to be. Well, I mean, in part, if people are dancing and twerking or whatever to the songs or whatever. But again, how's he pushing the envelope? And he's just using this, again, he's using the controversy, like, again, wearing dress. Again, I don't mind, do you? But I feel he's doing these things to sell records in just building into the culture war even more. Like, because he knows that's what's going to sell. And he knows that's what's going to get the attention. Like, people who may have known the Bad Bunny know him now, or at least will be intrigued as to who is this guy, that they're going to start listening to his music. So kind of what we see in independent media. Cause a controversy, have people watch you and sub to you. Same shit. So that's not activism. That's dollar signs. That's dollar bills. For that person or people. Not necessarily for, the uplifting and the liberation of the people that you care about. So that's just my take on it. But yeah, like I said, I just wanted to bring a different spin other than like the cultural talking point of being in the Super Bowl, which I get. But it's interesting to hear these other issues too that also kind of extend to Bad Bunny in terms of his music that are kind of being regarded as activism. I personally don't think it is. But let us know what you think. First of all, have you ever heard of Bad Bunny? Because even in that chat, people are like, I don't know who this guy is. So, like, have you heard of Bad Bunny? And let us know. Like, I'm gonna share my ignorance. Like, let us know, how has his songs resonated with you if you are a fan. But do you really believe he's the resistor that many academics and liberals are kind of claiming him to be? So let us know in the chat what you think. If you want to support us financially, you can scan the QR code you see on your screen, or you can go to the Ko-fi link you see at the bottom of your screen, or you can also go to PayPal, Cash App, or Substack if you want to give there. Links are in the description. And if you can't support us financially, and again, we know that hard times are had by many people, or at least will be, please like, share, and subscribe to our content in order to help us get to free K, hopefully by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And we thank you for watching.
Yeah. So cool. Before we get to that one, can we check in with chat for a bit? Let's look at, I gotta scroll up. Kill Your Egregore said young farts love them as well as old farts who get upset at anything that isn't their standard oldies, you know? So, Sean Bro did a 30-day residency and sold out, you know? Like, dude's killing it for sure, you know? What else? I saw another one that I was looking for. Where was it at? I mean, people were just saying that it's impressive that as a non-American, he's even made it to the Super Bowl. You know? Like...
But he's not the only one, though. He's
Sure.
not the only one. Like, Shakira, Jennifer Lopez, they performed in the Super Bowl. Rihanna, she's from Barbados. She performed at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You know, U2, Ireland, you know, like...
Sure. U2 probably has. I don't
Coldplay,
remember. Sure.
Like, who else? Like, there's a lot of artists who are not American.
Yeah, but they speak English, though. That's the thing. A lot of them
have performed in the Super Bowl. Like
I don't expect fucking
again, the issue...
Jerry Rivera to fucking be making it to the Super... You know what I mean? Like, India and Mark Anthony are not going to perform. Like, you know what I mean? Right. Like, that shit... I'm not going to get fucking Lamento Baricano. Like, that shit's not happening. Even though that's what I want.
Right.
You know, I want Jerry Rivera and Shakira to come out since she stole his fucking horn section. Oh, stole is not the right word, but...
And I actually didn't know this because this was 2020. So, like, this was just before COVID. But Bad Bunny performed with J-Lo and Shakira at their Super Bowl.
Sure.
So to go from that to now headlining, again, shows, again, no one goes to the Super Bowl unless they're able to bring an eyeball. And... MAGA, you are fucking stupid because you like whining and screaming about Bad Bunny is only going to make people watch more. Meanwhile, you're trying to have like this little Christian concert that no one's going to care about. Sorry, you know, like, but it's only going to bring more eyeballs and more money for Bad Bunny, you know, especially given his tours. He's touring for the year. The world is going to see him on the Super Bowl stage, and his shows are going to sell out for sure. Like if they haven't already. So you just essentially set the bomb for his rise over the next few months. Good job, MAGA.
Yep, I'm with you. stupid in general. I also see this as like there is this kind of pushback with like with ICE with the Latino culture, you know? Like Netflix is doing a fucking Selena documentary again. Like it's been a thing, you know? Like you're gonna be hearing Beady Beady Bum Bum about 80 times, you know? Like fucking, not that I'm complaining, you know? But speaking of J-Lo, that's what came to my mind, you know? So
right.
But anyway, speaking of Latin America in general, I brought this, Care Bear, and we've been talking about what's been happening in Venezuela quite a bit recently. It's been popping off down there, especially when we're committing war crimes in, you know, international waters and not so international waters, which you'll find out in a second. But we'll start here. So, Camilla Escalante, go follow her if you haven't already. She reports the United States murdered 2 men from Trinidad and Tobago in yesterday's U.S. strike on a boat in the Caribbean Sea during the fake anti-drug military operations against Venezuela. So I'll roll the footage.
2 men believed to be Trinbagonians were killed in the latest U.S. drone strike of Venezuelan waters. And now Alas Cuevas' family is demanding answers.
They say Chad Joseph wasn't a trafficker, just a young man trying to come home. Jensen Levent went to the fishing village to speak with the family.
Like most of the men gathered here at the Las Cuevas fishing depot, Chad Joseph was a fisherman. Both his relatives and residents are denying strenuously that he was involved in drug trafficking. They say his killing was unjust.
When Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar said the United States should kill alleged drug dealers violently, no citizen was listed among the dead. On the U.S.'s 5th airstrike, Trinidadians Chad Joseph and another man identified only as Samaru were among 6 people killed on Tuesday, taking the number of alleged narco-traffickers killed by the U.S. since September 2nd to 27. Joseph's grandfather, Cornell Clement, who denied his grandson was a drug trafficker, says he has no choice but to trust in God. Now he questions the U.S.'s method of dealing with the situation.
I watch it as wickedness. Because why we killing people children for? They're not meant that. It's supposed to be that way.
You say he was a drug trafficker, but he was...
No. The boy ain't no drug trafficker. He just make them run and come back.
Joseph's grandmother, Christine, says her grandson was in Venezuela for the past 3 months and wanted desperately to return home, but his previous attempts failed.
Before time he was coming, they shoot up the boat. He ended up surviving on some little beach, and some people take time because I talked to him and I talked to one of the ladies too. And the second time I heard he come in, I gave his mother 2 days ago, I asked her. She told me he must come in and something with the boat again, so he go back.
A short distance away, residents of Las Cuevas village stopped because one man expressed feels about Joseph's killing.
What the U.S. doing there? I think it's inhumane, right? If all they really want, all right, all they blow the boat up. What evidence it have showing really is drugs, you know, and stuff like that. Like we say, is guns, or even say is human trafficking, anything. We can. What is the closure the family having now?
Calls and messages to the Prime Minister and Defense Minister Wayne Sturge went unanswered. Months ago, Sturge said during a post-cabinet media briefing that any Trini fisherman caught doing illegal activity was on their own. Foreign Affairs Minister Sean Sobers was unavailable for comment. Jensen Lavend, CNC3 News.
What is the fucking Caribbean leadership doing? Is what I want to know. You know.
I mean, politician, like, politicking.
Yeah.
Same shit.
Fucking same shit.
We think that, like, we think that, you know, what we go through in this country is limited to here. No. It's everywhere.
Fucking dumb. So I had this from Arturo Dominguez. as the attacks on small vessels in the Caribbean off the coast of Latin America continue under the guise of targeting drug smugglers. The U.S. has yet to provide any evidence that it's targeting anyone other than civilians. The false accusations about drug smuggling against President Nicolas Maduro and now Colombian President Gustavo Petro, alongside the militarized and hateful rhetoric towards Latinos, make it clear that this isn't about democracy. New reporting from Colombia shows that on September 15th, the U.S. Navy fired on an incapacitated fishing vessel in Colombia's territorial waters. The vessel was adrift and had its distress signal up due to engine failure. According to the report, the people on board were not drug smugglers, but fishermen in distress. In yet another case, out of an abundance of cases since Trump took office, that highlights the importance of due process required by U.S. and international law, which there is none. There's no fucking due process, like, at this point. So, this is from Going Underground, who writes, Colombia knows that we are Siamese brothers, and whatever happens with Colombia happens with Venezuela, and whatever happens with Venezuela happens with Colombia. This is, again, Nicolas Maduro. Washington is embarking on another attempt at enforcing the Monroe Doctrine and wants to achieve the results of another Operation Condor. All of Latin America is under threat, not just Venezuela. Collin, have you heard of the Monroe Doctrine? You heard of this?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
yes.
I did not necessarily know all about it, so I went Googlings, right? And this is what supposedly it is. The Monroe Doctrine is United States foreign policy position that opposes European colonialism in the Western Hemisphere. It holds that any intervention in the political affairs of the Americas by foreign powers is a potentially hostile act against the U.S. The doctrine was central to American grand strategy in the 20th century. James Monroe first articulated the doctrine on December 2nd during his 7th annual State of the Union address to Congress, though it would not be named after him until 1850. At the time, nearly all Spanish colonies in the America had either achieved or were close to independence. Monroe inserted that the New World and the Old World were to remain distinctly separate spheres of influence, and thus further efforts by European powers to control or influence sovereign states in the region would be viewed as a threat to U.S. security. In turn, the U.S. would recognize and not interfere with existing European colonies, nor meddle in the internal affairs of European countries. Of course they wouldn't. You would never do that. During the Cold War, though, the Monroe Doctrine was applied to Latin America by the framers of U.S. foreign policy. When the Cuban Revolution established a communist government with ties to the Soviet Union, it was argued that Monroe Doctrine should be invoked to prevent the spread of Soviet-backed communism in Latin America. Under this rationale, the U.S. provided intelligence and military aid to Latin and South American governments that claimed or appeared to be threatened by communist subversion, as is in the case of Operation Condor. During the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, Kennedy cited the Monroe Doctrine as grounds of the United States confrontation with the Soviet Union on the installation of Soviet ballistic missiles on Cuban soil. The debate over this new interpretation of the Monroe Doctrine burgeoned in reaction to the Iran-Contra affair. It was revealed that the U.S. CIA had been covertly training Contra guerrilla soldiers in Honduras in an attempt to destabilize and overthrow the Sandinistas' revolutionary government of Nicaragua and its president Daniel Ortega. CIA Director Robert Gates vigorously defended the Contra operation in 1984, arguing that eschewing U.S. intervention in Nicaragua would be totally to abandon the Monroe Doctrine. So, Trump implied potential use of the doctrine in August 2017 when he mentioned the possibility of military intervention in Venezuela. CIA Director Pompeo declared that the nation's deterioration was the result of interference from Iranian and Russian-backed groups. In February 2018, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson praised the Monroe Doctrine as clearly a success, warning of imperial Chinese trade ambitions and touting the United States as the region's preferred trade partner. Pompeo replaced Tillerson as Secretary of State in May 2018. Trump reiterated his commitment to the implementation of the Monroe Doctrine at the 73rd UN General Assembly. In 2018, Russian Permanent Representative of the United Nations Vasily Nebenzia criticized the U.S. for what Russia perceived as the implementation of the Monroe Doctrine at the 8,452nd emergency meeting of the UN Security Council on January 26, 2019. Venezuela Representative listed 27 interventions in Latin America that Venezuela considers to be implementations of the Monroe Doctrine, that stated that, in the context of the statements, they considered it a direct military threat to the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Cuba's representative formulated a similar opinion. The current administration in the United States of America has declared the Monroe Doctrine to be in effect. On March 3rd, 2019, National Security Advisor and War Walrus John Bolton invoked the Monroe Doctrine in describing the Trump administration policies in America, saying, in this administration, we're not afraid to use the word Monroe Doctrine. It's been the objective of American presidents going back to Ronald Reagan to have a completely democratic hemisphere. President Trump, determined to treat the Western Hemisphere as a U.S. sphere of influence, has been characterized as a revival of said doctrine. Questions? Concerns? Thoughts? We good? Cool.
We're good.
Historians have observed that while the doctrine contained a commitment to resist further European colonialism in the Americas, it resulted in some aggressive implications for foreign policy from the U.S., since there was no limitations on its own actions mentioned within it. Historian Jay Sexton notes that the tactics used to implement the doctrine were modeled after those employed by European imperial powers during the 17th and 18th centuries. American history, William Appleman Williams, seeing the doctrine as a form of American imperialism, described it as a form of imperial anti-colonialism. Chomsky argues that in practice, the Monroe Doctrine has been used by the U.S. government as a declaration of hegemony and a right of unilateral intervention over the Americas, which is pretty much what it looks like it's been, no? So, just to continue our story from earlier, at the UN, Venezuela alerts of a killer roaming around the Caribbean committing massacres. Moncada displays today at Guardian newspaper, which reported that 2 Trinbagonians were murdered in the latest U.S. strike on a boat in the Caribbean, right? And Camilla writes, fishermen and seamen in Trinidad and Tobago are being urged to stay close to shore amid fears of being bombed by the United States military. So, and this is fishermen. Keep in mind what they do to Palestinian fishermen as well, essentially keeping them on the shore and making sure that they don't feed people with their skill. So that's part of it. But I found this on my Twitter when looking through stuff, Collin, and it piqued my interest because I hadn't heard about it, right? So Nicolas Maduro, handpicked successor to this man, Hugo Chavez, right, apparently donated like crazy amounts of oil to America to help like people heat their homes. Have you heard about this?
No.
So close to 200,000 poor families in 15 cold weather states in every northeastern state except New Hampshire can thank controversial Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez for helping them heat their homes this winter. So I found this article from People's World, right? Yes.
This year?
Yeah. No, 2013 is when this was written.
Okay.
So poor people in the U.S. also benefited from Venezuelan oil, which I think this actually happened before this article was written. So Boston, former U.S. Representative Joseph Kennedy II offered his prayers Tuesday to the family of late Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez, saying he cared deeply about the poor and helped nearly 2 million Americans through the former lawmaker's heating assistance charity. Okay, I think this was on the death of Chavez. This came out, right? So
yeah.
Kennedy, who heads Citizens Energy, said Chavez cared about the poor at a time when some of the wealthiest people on our planet have more money than they can ever reasonably expect to spend. So if you were in this area, you might have seen commercials such as this.
Mommy, I'm cold.
So in conjunction with Citgo,
I'm Joe Kennedy. If you need help staying warm, call me at Citizens Energy at 1-877-JOE for oil. We'll get you some heating oil at 40% off from the good people of Venezuela and Citgo. No one should be left out in the cold.
From the good people of Venezuela and Citgo.
Oh, God.
Yep. So, and remember last week how we were some of the only people to talk about how Maduro during talks was willing to like allow U.S. like private companies to do stuff with oil and resources there, right? Just to try to get Trump off his back, pretty much, which I've not seen anyone else talk about, but it sounds very similar to this kind of stuff, right? Where a spokesman for Kennedy said Chavez and the people of Venezuela have donated about 200 million gallons of heating oil over an 8-year collaboration with Citizens Energy. Donated. They just gave it. They're like, here. The charity distributes heating oil to lower income families in 25 states and Washington, D.C., offering 100 gallons per family. Kennedy, a son of the late Robert Kennedy and nephew of President John F. Kennedy, founded Citizens Energy in 1979 with the goal of reducing home heating oil costs for the poor and elderly after the energy crisis of the 1970s. So, the former Massachusetts Democratic congressman drew fire from U.S. critics of Chavez when he began the fuel assistance collaboration with Venezuela's state oil subsidiary in 2005. The critics said Chavez was using the heating oil program as propaganda against the Republican administration of President Bush. Kennedy's son, newly elected U.S. Representative Joseph Kennedy III, also released a statement saying, "My thoughts and prayers are with President Chavez's family." The younger Kennedy said in a statement, "In this time of transition, it is my hope the United States and Venezuela can build a productive relationship for the future." So, again, these were the kind of, like, commercials you'd see.
I wear 2 pairs of long underwear and a jacket, and that's inside my house.
I'm 84 and alone. I had to drag an iron cart from the basement to the kitchen so I could sleep by the oven.
I'm Joe Kennedy. Help is on the way. Heating oil at 40% off from our friends in Venezuela and Citgo. Call me at Citizens Energy at 1-877-JOE for oil. No one should be.
So this is what was playing at the time. I don't know if people remember this. But on December 6, 2005, Representative Jose Serrano, along with Citgo CEO Felix Rodriguez, leaders of neighborhood organizations, and Venezuela's ambassador to the United States, Bernardo Alvarez, delivered the first installment of 8 million gallons of Citgo heating oil, earmarked from New York City to be sold to those in need at a substantial reduced rate. Rep. Serrano issued this message. Hugo Chavez was a leader that understood the needs of the poor. He was committed to empowering the powerless. Rip, Mr. President. Serrano represents one of the most democratic and heavily Hispanic districts in the country in New York City at the time. On January 27, 2006, Rep. Chaka Fatah announced that Citgo, a U.S. subsidiary of the publicly owned Venezuelan National Oil Company, was going to begin shipping 5 billion gallons of discounted heating oil to Philadelphia as part of a plan to provide assistance to 25,000 low-income families throughout the city. So, have you heard about that at all? That Chavez essentially gave us a ton of oil? Here, take some oil, leave us alone. You know, that's pretty much what happened. Like, here, take it at a discount. So, you know, this would have been in your neck of the woods, I do believe. Sounded like all northeastern, like, areas, at least with the Kennedys involved, you know?
But that was probably before my time, before I moved up there. That
Sure.
was very 80s.
But
I came up in the early aughts.
I brought this just because we've been looking at, like, you know, a lot of these historical figures and what they said and what they've done in the past, right? As it influences what happens now, right? And just these little bits that get forgotten in history, you know, when they talk about, oh, he was a dictator, he ruined Venezuela and whatever. Then why the fuck were we taking their oil at a discount? Like, you know what I mean? We were super happy to have that. Right. You know, so, but it might be because he said shit like this back then. So this was 16 years ago, Care Bear, when that man, Hugo Chavez, exiled the Israeli ambassador 16 years ago. Right? So guess why he said that shit. Here you go. The plan they have is to thrash Gaza. First sentence. Even 2 years ago, we saw some images. The government of Israel said they would take out Jewish settlers in Gaza to facilitate the Palestinian government. Liars. They lied. It was to take out their own people and attain freedom for themselves. While Jews were inside Gaza, they couldn't destroy, as they are doing here, bombarding innocent people indiscriminately. It would have been difficult for them to kill their own people. Turns out, Hugo, it's not so difficult for them to kill their own people. Go look at what happened on October 7th. But, you know, now they had their hands free, and unfortunately, it's a horrible thing. This stage is the final one, the last attack to finish Gaza 16 years ago, and destroy more than 1.5 million Palestinians who have been blocked by the Israelis. A blockade on the Red Cross where medicine, food, nothing is allowed to pass into Gaza. And the world does nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not Venezuela. Venezuelans rise as a nation who want peace for the Palestinian people. Respect for Palestinians. We will see. This is where it gets funny. We will see if the new government of the United States will come with a new vision of the world. Guess which new government that was, Care Bear?
So 16 years ago, sales Obama.
January 20th, Obama's inauguration.
Come on, people!
We'll see if it's true that President Obama is going to finish the war in Iraq. And if he'll start taking away the unconditional support that the imperialist government, which has allowed Israel to attack, kill, murder, and ignore UN resolutions, etc. It is imperialist madness. Israel finally has become the killing arm of American imperialism. Here in Latin America, they tried to create an Israeli state. It will never happen here, an imperialist killing arm to assault the Latin American people. Every day, Latin America will be more united and more free. I hope someday Arabs will be the same way, united. United or dominated, you decide. So, of course they want regime change from his hand-chosen successor. Of course that's what they want.
Sure.
So, closing thoughts? Like,
history repeating itself.
Fucking sad, dude.
But
craziness.
Not much has changed.
Well, saying that not much has changed.
Nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed. Saying that nothing has changed is why YouTube's demonetized us. You can scan that QR code on your screen. Go to co-v.com/Indie News Network, or links are in the description below if you want to donate. But if you're one of the poors like ourselves, just like and subscribe, share this video with others, and leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Ow, all right. What's chat out to say? Didn't Ampam take over Shit Go Gas? Asks Sean the Accord Lord. No idea, dude. But Trump can't spell doctrine. Yeah. Agreed, Topher. Due process in the U.S. is overcharging you until you take a plea bargain. America. Like, in Topher with another good one. Sean the Accord Lord says they mad because they've been shortcutting their drug profits. Pretty much. Fucking awful. But yeah. Agreed. But Driving Me Macy said she used to work at Citgo. It was terrible. I could only imagine. You know?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. Kill your egregores, and we didn't even need it. Just greed, and greed kills. He's right, but dictator. Like, Topher, and once he said that about Israel, I knew we needed to bring democracy to the people of Venezuela. Yep. Pretty much.
Didn't Mandani say that Venezuela's built and trade on
Maduro's a dictator? That's what he fucking said. Yep. Even though we personally know multiple journalists who overseed their election process. One organization said there was ever a problem with it, and which one is cited by mainstream media? That one. Like, every other organization was like, oh, this is better than America's elections. You know? So, right. Like, what are we doing? Ugh. So, yeah, stupid. All right. Let's get to your last one, then we can head out of here.
Yeah. This is going to be quick. It's kind of not funny, but like at least you get a chuckle out of it. So, Reef, you don't have credit cards, but like
no, I was told never to buy those things.
Well,
you know,
well, you would be either way. Actually, this especially would apply to you. You're a deadbeat then.
Well, sure.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I'm not putting myself in debt. Like, you know.
Well, I think it's kind of again. I saw this on Instagram and I thought it was kind of funny, but so I just pulled the actual thing.
Right.
So this is from the Tropics, I guess that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
So they write, people who pay off their credit card balance are known as deadbeats by banks. So in the credit industry, those who pay off their balance in full are ironically deemed less desirable because they don't generate interest revenue. So in the credit card world, a deadbeat is someone who pays their full balance every month, avoiding interest and fees altogether. What sounds like a compliment in everyday life becomes a stigma in banking because those customers don't feed the profit engine of debt. Banks are built on the reality that many cardholders carry balances, incur late fees, or pay high interest rates. These revolvers reduce predictable revenue. The deadbeat users are actually less lucrative despite being low risk.
Sure.
So, I mean, again, I think generally people know this, but I think it's just funny that there's actually a term for you all who pay off your interest every month in the attempt not to gain interest or get into any debt, out of your sanity. But but you're considered low risk. But that's also why, because this happened to me several times. You know, like you pay off your credit card, your credit score goes down, at least temporarily, because they're not going to get you off your interest. So I think it was just kind of funny that there is actually a term that bankers call you in terms of you being wise with your money, essentially. So, but yeah, I just thought it was just kind of funny, just to do that. That's
The whole
all.
credit store system
I think
is
that's no surprise to anybody.
stupid. I've always found it dumb and made no sense. Like, it's just always craziness. But, yep, good to know. I highly suggest people not buying credit cards. Just use those checking and fucking debit cards. You'll be all right.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the catch, though. Like,
yep,
the reality is you need credit.
Yeah.
In order to, they tie credit to like big ticket items like a car or a house, especially.
Yep.
So,
anything you got to make
you
payments
need
on,
to have,
whatever.
right. But don't listen to the fucking banks. Like, if anything, if you're going to use a credit card, try and use it just to get the perks off of it.
Yeah.
But make sure that you pay your debt every month if you can. And if not, always try and pay a little bit more so you're not paying as much interest for you, and try to pay it off quickly as possible. But yeah, the idea is general rule of thumb. If you know you're not able to pay for it within the month,
Right.
don't get it.
Don't do
So
it. Don't do it. It's
I
bad.
say this, and I am not necessarily listen to what I say now, as I'm in credit card debt right now. I'm working on that right now, but yeah, just be wise with your money.
Yeah.
So.
And speaking of money, talking about these things is why YouTube's demonetized us. So scan that QR code on your screen. Go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, or links to donate are in the description below. And if you can't do that, like and subscribe, hit the share button, and leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Pew! Well, we did it. That's our show. We made it, everybody.
We did it.
However, they also tie it to current. If you haven't used your credit in 6 months, you don't have an active score. Yeah. They just don't like it when you don't live above your means.
Right.
Sean the Accordo, I love when I applied for non-solicited credit card application and they returned, sorry, you have a non-existent credit score, therefore we can't approve you. Yep. That makes sense. When I was broke living off credit, I could get any card I wanted. Now I don't get offered shit. Says Topher. Yep. Anyway, what's happening Sunday? Me and Indy, I think, are doing. How do we miss that? And next Wednesday, they're doing the Justice for Aspen stream, right? I do believe that's what's happening. So
that's
definitely tune in for that.
So we will not. So as a result, we got kicked aside for that stream. So
we'll take a week off.
No INN news next week. So, but given that next week is Halloween, happy Halloween, y'all.
Yeah, happy spooky time.
Celebrate. And then we'll be back. So that would be, what date is that? That would be the 6th.
Yep.
I believe we'll be back. No, the 5th.
Yeah.
Remember from the 5th of November.
Remember. We should do something on that. Remind me. We'll do a Guy Fawkes Day thing.
Sure. We can definitely do that.
Gunpowder, treason, and plot. Is the rest of that poem? No. But
yes.
Yep. little guy fight. You gonna put out your little effigy and do your burning bonfire and all that stuff, you know? Really feel homesick and celebrate Guy Fawkes. You know. But anyway, well, I think that's our show. As always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
There's a difference between peace and liberation, is there not? You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct? Peace and be enslaved.
Yes.
So peace isn't the answer.
No.
Liberation is the answer.